Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 608. Hopefully, you guys have had kicked off your weekend well. I've got a great guest for you, Mr. Paisley Acres. How you doing, my friend? You want to tell us how you're doing and where we can find you?
Yeah, man, I'm doing real well. I am Paisley underscore acres on Instagram, and find us up here in the central UP, about 30 miles south of Lake Superior, 30 miles north of Lake Michigan.
Nice. I didn't realize you're a Uper. Holy cow! Nice.
Yeah, man, born and raised up here, and spent a little bit of time traveling around when I was younger, and came back and been here for a good minute since. Yeah, love it up here. It's beautiful. It's a long winter, I'll tell you that, and short growing season, but we make the most of it.
You just kind of snagged what I was gonna say right out of my mouth there, about the long winters, man. I am just north of Holton Lake, basically, and I moved up here from lower Michigan, and yeah, from downstate to here, the winters are long. So I can't
Yeah.
imagine up there how much longer they are.
Yeah, man. We were real excited. It was like probably about a week ago, 10 days ago, when I saw the gravel in my driveway for the first time since, December or something like that. And still, my whole yard is under snow. I still need snowshoes to go check out the greenhouses and all that right now, but it's going away. Is the sun is coming back, and it's definitely things are receding. There's hope.
It's a funny thing. Another funny thing you kind of brought up there again already is the snowshoes. I know, you know what I mean? I'd seen them when I was growing up as a kid, like on TV and shit like that. And I thought, wow, you'll never fucking need those. When I moved up here and got into some of that deep snow, I was like, yeah, I guess I could see that shit. Yeah, there is a need
Oh
for
yeah.
snowshoes.
Oh yeah, they can really make or break a situation, if you don't have them. I mean, there's still like even some of the spots where we were walking around earlier this year is like even snowshoes walking in this shit is like, still a lot of work. But yeah, no, right now it's been great because like we got the nice little crust layer, and you can walk on that. So far, the dogs can walk on that, but when you bust through, those snowshoes are nice to get back there, just kind of like put your eyes on the prize and look at the garden, and get out in the sunshine for sure. It's important to get outside. I haven't been nearly as good. I was telling you before we got in here, I went snowboarding earlier today, and usually love to snowboard, and it's important to stay active in these long winters for sure.
That's true, very true. So you showed me before the show there that you were packed up and ready to go. What is in that sweet rig you had there?
Oh yeah, I've got smoking this tropical gelato uh from a clone my buddy gave me. I think it's something like some project 4516 and like Tropicana cookie cross or something. It's delicious. It's like definitely got kind of like a tangy-ish orangey type flavor, but real pretty purple buds, and it's a nice one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one
So
came out of the earth boxes.
I guess we'll start this off right where we usually do. When and where did cannabis enter your life? How did it come about to start off your journey?
Yeah, man. Probably I was like 13 years old. I want to say when I got my first bag with one of my friends. We were middle school, and spending a week with one of my friends whose older sisters, was in that scene. She was in high school and she was like, selling weed and stuff. And yeah, got scored a, scored a 20 bag from her, and smoked. We went out in the car and smoked a couple bowls, and I don't think I got high that first time, but I had that bag of weed and smoked it again later with some other high school neighbor kind of friends of mine, and did get high for sure. And then I think I ended up giving the rest of that bag away. And later that spring, that was in the fall of my 7th grade year probably, and later that spring picked it back up, and pretty much have been going hard ever since. But yeah, no, that was my early days. Was a lot of brick weed, and we were just running around skateboarding, getting high, finding places where we could go and sneak off and get high, and skate life basically, and go swimming and do all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no, it was that for a couple years, and probably when I turned about when I was in probably a freshman in high school, it's probably when we started getting more like things like half ounces and ounces, and trying to sell a couple bags so that you can make some free smoke type thing. But yeah, it evolved kind of quickly after that though, because medical got voted in Michigan in 2008. Let's see, I believe I was I was a sophomore in high school probably, or somewhere about that. So yeah, things started changing really quickly, after things went medical. We started seeing a lot more real strains, and a lot of the people, growing weed for the first time at home. And yeah, it was cool to see the strains rolling when that change happened.
So I'm gonna ask you the same thing I asked Turp Wizard yesterday. So any trouble in the younger years with cannabis?
No, I was actually pretty fortunate with that. No, I was a troublemaker kid for sure, and I was definitely getting into all sorts of trouble. But I didn't get in trouble with the law, luckily enough. Yeah, no, got lucky there. Definitely had close calls and all that, but no, I mean I'm so lucky. I didn't even get an MIP, nothing like that when I was younger. I did get in trouble for some really unrelated stuff that we won't get into, but it was lucky on the weed front, and especially just being such a reckless young teenager, and with that kind of with the weed for sure.
So what was it, just the legal medical market there, or getting a medical card that opened the door for cultivation?
Cultivation, yeah. Well, so yeah, I guess I'd pop a couple of seeds when I was younger just for fun, and those never really went anywhere. I never grew that to completion. But no, right about the time that medical was getting passed, I had just met this guy who was growing some weed in his closet, and it was the first time I'd ever seen anybody growing some nice indoor bud, and he had some really killer shit. Honestly, he had LA Confidential and AK-48, some belladonna, some purple train wreck or something like this too. He had a good handful of really beautiful strains, and He is one of the people who he was one of my it's funny, because I haven't talked to him really in some years. We kind of fell apart, but he influenced my path in growing for sure. And I was 17 probably when I met Jay, and it was, yeah, the first time I'd seen weed plants growing and was able to know for sure, like, this is this strain, that he says it is, because I can see the pack of seeds right here, uh, type of thing. But yeah, that was in like 2007, 2008. And yeah, that was my introduction to growing. And yeah, it was like pretty kind of shortly after met Jay, ended up helping him a lot with his grows. And that one of the first summers he had kind of moved out near where I live, where my folks live. And yeah, I just got really involved out there. It was a mess, like his pipes had burst in the winter, and so he didn't have running water at the house, but there's like a community center down the way, and we're out in the middle of nowhere, but like a township hall down the way with running water spigots. And we're going there all year round, filling up 30, 40, 50, 1 gallon jugs, 2 gallon jugs, every gallon jug that you can fit in the back of a Buick, Park Avenue, back seats and trunks and all that, to get back to the house to water these plants. And yeah, that was some more, some of the first strains getting introduced to, like, that girl. Like I said, it was the first time I was really intimate with cultivating. And Space Queen was one of those strains. Cheesel. I think there was also I think that might have been the time there was a purple train wreck. Cheesel, Space Queen, something like that. And yeah, got to grow out a couple of different strains with him. And also through him, he was like, so it was funny, like right around this time, yeah, I'm like 17, 18, and meet him and kind of get turned on to, like the jam band community and like the Grateful Dead and, that kind of music and stuff. And I met another fellow here in town through, who was in a band with one of my like family friends. And he, was I'd like stop by to sell them a bag of weed at their band practice. And he was, I started telling him about, tripping and, been tripping with these people and talking about the Grateful Dead. And his eyes kind of perked up because he is a bit older than me. And he just like kind of, got to know me a little bit. And after he got to know me a little bit, kind of took me on to his girls and kind of showing me what he had going on. And yeah, he's still one of my good buddies to this day. And yeah, he was, growing a lot of some early strains. He was also, yeah, he got turned on to a bunch of some of the first real killer genetics that's hard to say. The first real killer genetics, because that Space Queen was pretty fire too. But yeah, my buddy Anthony, he was getting cool clones like the Chem Sis clone, for instance. And he was growing some early like Gage Green stuff, like the white Urkel, I remember, was just like some super dank weed that he was growing. And man, he grew a lot of strains. So yeah, that was, that was when I was all about 18. Was started really getting into it and kind of like, so I guess to jump back a little bit, and yeah, sorry if I'm rambling. I guess that's kind of seems to be like the format, kind of. But yeah. So to jump back just a little bit, like when I first started growing with Jason there, he and yeah, whatever his name is fine. He was all hammered it in from the get go. Organic. And he had some experience in the like late 90s to like mid 2000s, in Humboldt County, and growing outdoor there and some indoor, and he had learned from some people, and uh, he was all about the organic, and we were using like earth juice, nutrients was like the first lines we were really using, and that Fox Farm Big Bloom, he loved that stuff, and trying to think what other it was. He always told me like, the two of the main things is like the earth juice catalyst and the Fox Farm Big Bloom, but also actually that Humboldt Super Bat. I kind of remember all that stuff. But anyway, he just hammered it in from the very beginning: organic, 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 and it's gonna always be better flavor. You can just feed your plants heavy; it won't burn them, it won't cause them to, And that always had kind of resonated with me right off the bat. Anyway, just kind of like from, my upbringing. My mom is a really health conscious person, and and just like, I don't know, the sound of like plants eating an organic, to me that was still like very this was all really new concepts, but the idea of something being able to eat in a more organic diet of like, whatever's in all the Fox Farm Big Bloom, the guanos and the poops and stuff, compared to like a synthetic diet, appealed to me like right away. Thinking about, just like eating an organic fruit or vegetable compared to, a normal one, right away I was like, oh well, that's going to be what the better quality is, So anyway, that was right away, that just resonated with me. I was young and impressioned in that pretty strongly, and yeah, spent some time up here, until I was about 19, and moved to California, and was able to move out there and move in with a buddy of mine who I'm still also really good friends with. He was out there growing. He's a little bit older than me. He had been out there growing for some time before I got out there, and had invited me. He was living in Mammoth Lakes. We were snowboarder friends, and invited me to come out and snowboard and help out in the grow room, and come. To me, it sounded like lived the dream, essentially. And so I went out there, and it was kind of not all that it had been like, written up to be. Like, we had to kick a bunch of people out of the house to start the grow room type thing. And but he had all the equipment, and and all this, but he also, and I love my buddy to death, but this stuff was all too funny looking back. But he broke his arm at the time, and so I, brand new to this whole, like, well, not brand new, but pretty new to this whole like indoor growing thing. And I'm like up here trying to pan to film out these rooms for him all perfectly and meticulously. And yeah, no, it was fun. That was funny. So we didn't know that first winter I got out to California, I didn't get into growing like immediately. But then later that summer, my same buddy there got me a job. He called me as I had come home to Michigan to pick up a car, my old Buick, and drive it back out to California so I could have wheels and stuff. And he called me while I was on the road and was like, hey, I got this job. I've been working in Malibu, and I got this job, I'm on salary. They've got me, running their show. And if you want, like I can hire you on, you can come live here. It's I forget what they were paying me at the time. It's like $15 an hour or something. Everything's paid for, and come on up. And as I'm like driving across the country with my pops, and I'm like, yeah, come check it out when I get there. And went up there, and yeah, they were rocking. It was my first kind of real experience doing a bigger indoor. It was like, can't remember exactly. There's at least a 25 light room, and then there was another like probably like a 6 light, maybe two more like 6 light rooms of bloom. And we were the main, like, I want to say that main like 25 light room or something. Yeah, it was, I want to say we were doing like cycles of like, there was 800 plants in flower there, and we'd pull down 200 like every 10 days or 2 weeks or so. And so at any given time, there was, it was probably about 2,000 plants keeping this cycle going of like having clones and moms and vegging plants, and filling these 200 plants every 2 weeks to go into this cycle. And that was my first like, holy shit, like we wake up and spray clones like before you even make breakfast or do anything else, before you even think twice. He would hit me with a volcano bag in the morning if I was lucky. You'd fill up a volcano bag and tap me with it, and it was hit the bag and wake up and spray clones. And yeah, so that was kind of my first real intro into really getting into production a little bit more.
I would say that's a pretty good introduction right there. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't, super long lived. I did that for probably 3 months only, really. It was cool. It was like, it was a job, up there, and it was and I was never leaving this house, and I was loving it, but at the same time I was like, 19 or 20 or whatever it was, and further, the Grateful Dead project at the time was coming to town and going north. And it was, around October that they were doing their like fall tour. And I asked to get paid out from these guys, and they were super cool about it. Had been just amazing house. It was that Malibu house was just incredible. We were, up on top of this ridge just overlooking the ocean, and that whole experience was incredible. It really was truly like, it was just too cool, like learning how to grow like that, and just living there. But also just weren't necessarily my people, and just like whatever, I was young and moving. And yeah, so further came to town, and I ended up meeting my friend who was back in Mammoth, and managing the dispensary there in Mammoth. And just ended up like living with him for the winter, growing some herb indoors kind of on a small scale. And then the next summer, just like whatever, bounced around and went on all sorts of tour, like jam band tour stuff, fish and all that. And in the fall, ended up at a trim camp, like after meeting the right kids or whatever, and hanging out with some really cool kids who were also Midwest kids, but had all been hanging out on the West Coast. Found myself in Humboldt County, in outside of Garberville or whatever, and near the coast, trimming a bunch of herb, and just like, that was also another just like incredible peek into the industry for me, because at this point I'd already kind of grown, and a little bit, none of these were like the Malibu thing, for instance, was not organic, it was all like advanced nutrients and cocoa type thing. And I wasn't in charge of the new, regimen. That was, like top secret, chef stuff, hoarded amongst those guys or whatever. And so that was like, that kind of like nutrient manipulation, that stuff was kind of out of my hands, but I was really into the genetics and all that kind of stuff. But then, yeah, being at that place in Humboldt, being able to see just like so much different variety and like how they're doing it on a scale like that, and meeting a kid there who had who told me that he was from Colorado, that him and his partners had won a cannabis cup in Colorado with some herb they grew, with compost teas. They had been brewing compost teas, and their herb had like won a cup or something like this. And yeah, this was 2012. So this was like, fairly early for, I mean, I'm sure like there's lots of people doing compost teas probably, since forever. But yeah, that was something that really piqued my mind. All of a sudden I was like, kind of like, man, when I get a chance to grow again and it's mine now, and I get full say in it, like I'm gonna look into this compost tea thing, because that sounds pretty cool. It sounds like organic and it's really producing a high quality product, since these guys are winning an award or whatever. And yeah, that definitely planted a seed in my head, and yeah, I don't know where it goes from there. I think it was a couple more years before I would even get to grow my own gardens like that. Another season of trim camp in 2013 or something in the Grass Valley area. And again, just a cool experience to see a lot of these varieties being grown, like the SFVs and the Blackberry Kushes and the Master Kushes, and I don't know. There was a lot of all those headbands and OGs and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just cool for me, just kind of soaking up all these genetics and just like kind of getting to see all of these things and just be a part of it. And yeah, I think that was all pre coming back to the UP and kind of starting the Paisley Acres thing. Sorry, I'm definitely rambled there a little bit and kind of even got lost with where I'm going, but there's a lot maybe to unpack.
I love the rambles like that. I very much feel like it's best, to kind of stay out of the way, as an interviewer and as somebody that's watched a lot of interviews. I feel a lot of times when somebody's, and I hate that, I don't even think this is more an interview. I don't even like to view it like that. It's more of a conversation. And when somebody's talking to somebody and they just being pounded with questions, they don't get the full story out or the full point most times. So I love the ramble answers. You know what I mean? I would rather you just kind of empty your mind on whatever you got to say, and then we move forward. You know what I mean? Versus me trying to cut up the story.
That was a big mind vomit for you for sure. Yeah, for sure, man. That's definitely a little timeline history of it.
So one thing I loved about the story so far is that it sounds like there's a ton of great experience already to this point, but it sounds like it's steeped with great cannabis culture. You know what I mean? Kind of moving around the West Coast and, hanging out with some good growers and, of course, the the fish angles, the height of it. I've had a lot of deadheads and it come through a lot lately. One of them in chat, Mr. Buddy Kilowatt, I think he said he did like a 35-year, and I could be, and he's still going. He's still going. You know what I mean?
Yep.
As he was on the other night, he was like, "Man, have you ever been?" I'm like, "No, I've never been." And he was like, "You." He went like into like a 10-minute reason why I should go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's funny. Once you get that hook set in you, it's hard to let go. And oh, for sure. Yeah, that was a balance. That was a balancing act. Once I tried to get rooted here and kind of learn to forget about the fact that there's all of these music and bands and people and places and things to do, and it's time to like get rooted and focus on your craft. That was a challenge at first.
Yeah. So, I mean, what brings you to the UP at this point? I mean, you got fun in
Yeah,
the sun, you've got fucking music, you've got cannabis, you got it
yeah,
sounds like there's got to be psychedelics in the picture because that's
for sure.
just part of the recipe. But
Yeah,
and again, jealous.
no,
So
it was good times. It was definitely good times, and it just how did it even end up? Well, I mean, I right after I turned 21, I was in Colorado for New Year's for a New Year's show out there, and I got a DUI actually, and I had to deal with all the court proceedings there in Colorado. So I ended up spending the winter there and snowboarding and getting a job at some ski hills and stuff like that, and waiting to deal with that whole thing. And I guess and I ended up coming home to the UP to like deal with probation after I gotten sentenced. It was Colorado's got some crazy like classes and stuff that they make you do to deal with that, and Michigan was way more lax. And so I came home, and around that time had met a friend from Milwaukee, and yeah, we were bouncing all over the place. But yes, so and he's like I'm sure he doesn't mind if I shout him out, but my boy Jim, uh he we were out in Oregon, so I was home, dealing with probation, whatever. I think probation was over, and I was trying to figure out what my next move was, and I went out to Oregon to go to some festival, and I had like hitchhiked out there. It's a whole thing. That was my prime time wook days, or whatever you want to call it. But got out to Oregon and needed a ride home back to the Midwest after the festival, and Jimmy and was somebody who I knew was driving all the way back to Wisconsin, and him and his girlfriend at the time and two of his other best friends were already packed up in a Prius, with all their backpacks and gear from Milwaukee all the way out to Portland or something like this. And I like begged them to let me in too, and they let me in, and five of us rode all the way back to the Midwest. And during that time, I got to know Jimmy pretty well, and he was smart and wanted to had learned a bit about growing in school. Like he had like somehow been dual enrolled in like these aquaponics classes as part of his like high school curriculum, and he was totally into the weed culture. Like he's even a little bit younger than me, but it's funny. I've been listening to all these podcasts lately and stuff, and kind of learning about the evolution of like the hash evolution and dab rigs, and like kind of like playing that timeline back in my head with the evolution of hash and dab rigs. And man, Jimmy was ahead of his time. He had quite the glass collection and all that. But anyway, he wanted to grow, and and he was down to try and figure something out. And I was, at the time, like I said, just kind of trying to figure out what my next step was. Had just finished probation. I was in the UP, kind of was thinking about going back out to California and working at ski hills or working on weed farms or whatever it was. But, ultimately knew that those kinds of things weren't like, they were fun and they were real enjoyable and everything. But like, I was always just getting by, I was having a blast getting by, but I wasn't really establishing myself or like kind of like building a foundation for myself, so to speak. Like I wasn't I was having fun for sure. But so anyway, when Jim like kind of showed some interest in wanting to grow up here in Michigan, and I was telling him that, hey, we got this great caregiver program, and I think we can do this. We could we can see if we can rent a house, and maybe they'll let us grow there. We're medical caregivers, maybe they'll just and it was like, looking back on it now, like, oh my God, like we were young. I don't know. He was like, 19 or something. I was like 21, 22 maybe. And he he moved up. Well, like, oh yeah, so he called me, stayed on top of me about it. Every once in a while we touch base and talk and be like, man, I've been looking at houses on Craigslist. I've been looking at rentals, what do you think about this place? What do you think about that place? And we were just kind of pipe dreaming it. But eventually see this place on Craigslist, and it kind of looks a little crappy. It's a little beat up. It's like kind of a fixer-upper house, and that they're trying to rent. And the upstairs isn't finished very well, and this and that. And they're like, I call them up, and I'm straightforward with them right away. Like, hey, me and my friend are looking to rent a house, and we're medical marijuana caregivers, and we want to build a greenhouse in the backyard, and everything we do is legal. We're allowed to do it, but I just want to be straight up that we're going to build this greenhouse, and we want to know that's not a problem. And they were cool with it. They're like, yeah, as long as you've got your cards or whatever, that's cool. Like, that's fine. And they just wanted somebody in the house to like take care of the place, and because it had been in their family, and like they weren't around to take care of it really anymore. And so we moved in there and just kind of blew it up for the year. We built this greenhouse. We did fix up their house a little bit, but we also didn't, I don't know. We split out of there pretty quickly. It was an old place in the middle of nowhere. And the UP is, I mean, in itself is the middle of nowhere, but when you're in the middle of nowhere in the UP, you're in the middle of nowhere. And it's a long way to get, to get groceries, or to, for us at the time, it was to go have fun. And we were young and all that. And so, yeah, we did our first outdoor there, that basically established this consecutive run of what we've been doing as outdoor growers up here in the Upper Peninsula in 2014. That was the year me and Jimmy did our first grow up here. And it was pretty decent sized little pen, but we did all right. I mean, I don't know. We grew some the genetics were all from our friend, and they looked good, but like, I don't know if we just didn't dry super properly or what, but it was all right. And but enough to where we like recouped everything that we had put into it, and we were happy with it. It was our first real go at doing this outdoor thing, and we had never tried to take on 50, 60 outdoor plants at a time, like a two person team doing all that, and so we, I think we machine trimmed it that year. Rented like one of those twister machine trimmers. Oh, never ever do that. But yeah, I mean, we recouped enough money to where that shortly after harvest that year, we got into this place out here where we are now, in this neighborhood, at least in the central UP. And yeah, we got this 10-acre parcel out here, and got it on a land contract, and we were, started, it had a big attached garage, and we cleaned it out and started an indoor grow in there. I think we had like, I don't know, eight lights or something in there, and built a greenhouse out front in this super shady spot, and had a kind of crappy outdoor year that year. But that first year in the new spot in Trinary, and yeah, we just kept upgrading from there. So yeah, basically, man, I mean, yeah, we're gonna run through my whole cultivating timeline here. Yeah, basically, after me and Jimmy did that for a little while, we kind of went our separate ways, and he bought me out of the place, and I kind of drifted for a little bit. I was like trying to do some grows with some other people, and things weren't quite panning out. And but I was like still hustling and stuff, and I had a little bit of money up. I got a little bit of help from my folks, and I got a down payment on the place where I am now, which is 10 acres right next door to Jimmy. And it was funny, because it wasn't like necessarily intended to be like that. I was like, I was just kind of at this point in my life where, or at this point where like after I had gone my separate way, like things weren't kind of working out the way I was hoping. And I was like, man, do I go back to California, or do I, hit the road again and just go kind of figure life out? Or like, I knew that I wanted to own property though, because I knew that I was starting to, like, by that point, like, I'm skipping over all sorts of stuff for sure right now, but I had started to kind of like learn about permaculture and understand like permaculture, and like just trying to do have the most beneficial impact, I guess you could say, as possible, by being with growing methods and beyond, just as a earth steward. And so I kind of I knew I wanted to get a house or a property, but I didn't know exactly, I wasn't trying to force it. And yeah, it was funny. Oh my God, this is a funny story. I'll have to tell this real quick. But yeah, the place where I'm at, I remember when I was living over next door, and this place, they had a bunch of big trees in the front yard, big beautiful pines, big shade blockers protecting you from the road and this and that. And they cut these trees down, and shortly after they put up the for sale sign on my property. And I was like, oh, those dummies, like, they're never gonna sell that ugly brown garage and that vacant, wide open field of a lawn, no shade trees. Like, that was so dumb. Who would buy that place? And then after doing some research and figuring out, prices to build pole buildings that were approximately the same size, and the price of land, and all of this stuff, and then figuring out that when I was looking at this parcel that's actually in between me and the first place I've been living, that this place was the one that had the nice clearing in the back that was protected from the wind, protected from eyes, protected from the road. And I was like, dang, that parcel with the ugly brown garage and no trees in the front yard is a pretty sweet deal, actually. And I'll be Jimmy's neighbor. Hey, that's not so bad. Yeah, that's how that came to be. And now I'm here. I've been here for uh this will be my sixth summer here right now.
Nice, nice. It's kind of cool that it did work out that you're right next door to your friend like that. That double the dream, I would think,
Yeah,
right
man.
off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like I said, the UP is a big place, for sure. And like when I was kind of like looking at that period of time, I was looking everywhere, and I was looking in a price range, that wasn't very much, and so there's like very limited options as to like what was available and what was gonna work for what I needed to happen. And yeah, it just so happened that it's right next door to one of my best friends. So that worked out pretty well.
Right on. So I guess my next question would be kind of at one point, has cannabis, the way you felt about cannabis, changed with kind of the medical angle of it all, or has it changed? So you took on cultivation pretty early, so has it always been the same? Because I find that's when it kind of usually shifts for most. Even as a medical patient, I think they have respect for the medicine, but once you do kind of cultivate it for yourself, I think it's a whole new ballgame, like your relationship with the plant.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, when I was young, like I mean, I think you hit it on the head, before I had any uh introduction to growing, when I was just like, youngster in high school, whatever, getting high, it was just, being a being a rebel, essentially just trying to go do hood rat shit and get high. And that was, I think, just my form of being a rebel. Uh but then once I kind of comprehended, like once things went legal and I was 18, old enough to grow and see that this, like, wow, this could like actually be a career, and like this is actually something that is really really beneficial to people. Like, it started to turn the like rebel side of using marijuana into like a rebel with a cause kind of thing. Like, hey, like this is actually something that is really beneficial. And I had noticed it even, I guess, as a youngster, like, or like before I even got into like growing, even just for my mood, and just like even like if I was having a hot temper or something like that, if I could like take time and like smoke some weed and calm down, like I could come out of a situation with a totally level head. And that alone I was saw right away was beneficial. How could that hurt somebody, if you can actually have this tool to like calm down and relax. So it's like right away I just like understood that, like, or like pretty early on I understood that this was something that was beneficial for the world, whether it was even just, like I said, before it even gets into permaculture type stuff. I mean, just to relax. If what curing cancer, helping with seizures, epilepsy. I was aware of all of that type of stuff, and I knew about it, and I thought that was, unbelievable. Well, I mean, I believed it, but I thought it was just incredible. I was like telling everybody about it. I was trying to, I was super excited about it, and it really charged me up. Not that I had anybody that I was like working with to like help them with their cancer, or like I wasn't personally like involved with anybody who had like really hardcore illnesses at that time to like know that marijuana was helping them. But I knew that was a thing, and I knew that marijuana helped me, like, even, just to be like a more well-rounded, or like rounded off person, just to like kind of come at things, like I said, with a little bit more clear head sometimes. As funny as that sounds.
I definitely can appreciate the want to, I smile a little bit when you said, the reason why you kind of knew you wanted to own some land, or you wanted to own some land, was to kind of create the permaculture dream, not just
Yeah.
kind of own some land, but to, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
buy some land and be a steward. I thought that was pretty cool when you said that, to be honest with
Yeah, man. I think that that's definitely what it was at that point all about to me. I mean, still is, and that's like a never ending wormhole as far as I can tell. I mean, you could be taking care of your 10 acres till the day you die happily. There's plenty to do, but no, for sure. I mean, at that kind of transition point in my life where it was like, hey, can I do this? Do I want to get this piece of land? There was also still that first kind of side of my young life that was like, hey, you can have all the land in the world by just roaming around in a car and seeing the countryside and sleeping in national forests and whatever, going places and doing things. And like there's definitely it was a it, that was the main focus behind getting land. Was like, okay, now I can do these cool things that I'm learning about with the hugelkultures and the composting and cover cropping, and like just like learning more about like you know uh the dynamic accumulator plants and stuff was really tripping me out when I started first learning about that. Yeah, because so I guess I don't know if there's like if there's something else that you wanted to bring up, but um yeah, I guess like back when Jim and I first uh moved to Trinary in, like I said, about 2015, I guess I also got a job at the local grow store, and had just started working at the grocery store. I was there for actually right up until the 2020, the spring of 2020 or whatever. So for five years or something like that, I was at that grocery store, and that again just like helped open up a whole new can of worms for me with growing, because now I had to learn about salt grow type stuff and hydro type stuff, and be able to kind of like troubleshoot people with their mineral deficiencies or with their mineral program, or of any sort in their feed programs. And just it forced me to learn a lot more, and it forced me to start looking at the backs of bottles. Every bottle in the store, I'm looking at the back of every nutrient bottle now, and I'm reading the ingredients in them. I'm reading what they're talking about on the back of everything, and every bottle of snake oil too. It's like, what the hell are you guys getting at? Just trying to demystify everything that was in that grocery store, so I could really kind of wrap my head around it. And yeah, so I started, learning a lot there right away. There was some really good dude working with me there at the time who was just like super. He was like a super intellectual dude too, and just like super inquisitive. And we would be reading about different organic blends even, and oh, kelp has auxins and gibberellins, and we'd be on the clock at the store or whatever, and he'd just be like, well, let's find out what gibberellins are, and we just spend all day just like diving, what's a gibberellin, what's an auxin, what's a phytocannin, what's this, what's that, and just like learning what all of these little things do, and then trying to figure out, okay, well, this product has a combination of these things and this one has a combination of this and that, but without this or plus this. And so we're just kind of looking at all these things and just kind of understanding like all these different nutrients are really the same thing with a different bottle and maybe a slightly different ratio, or just a different sticker with a slightly different ratio. But the organic stuff was like started to really get more mystifying to me, because there's all these other secondary metabolites, I guess. Now we're learning about it. There's all these other things going on when you are breaking down kelp, or organic matter. There's all these different little minerals and hormones and things being, enzymes and acids and stuff being produced. And I just started learning about that stuff a lot in the grow store. And then when I started learning about like, I remember one of these products, this is one of these things, like, I have no idea how this product, where it even came from, how it got into this grow store. The guy who owned it was not, into organics. But there was this little like package of this like tea starter brewing mix that had like the biodynamic preparations listed on it. And they were talking about, this product is made with biodynamic preparations, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, what the hell is biodynamic? And that turned into a whole wormhole. And I just really realized, like, and that still to this day is something that like I like to observe and I like to like look at, but that's on like a whole nother level. I think there's a lot to learn, but still just on a whole nother level. But point being that just started to learn about these plants, because like in the biodynamic preparations, there's like a handful of certain plants that are used to make preparations that help crops with certain aspects. And so I just started looking into all these different things about like plants being full of nutrients, of course, and vitamins, and started realizing, hey, every permaculture book, it's like unanimous that comfrey is like the ultimate plant in the world, to make mulch and build soil. And it has these big, thick tap roots, and it goes down into any soil, and it just pulls up minerals from deep down in the sand and earth, and it brings it up into its leafy tissue. And it when it dies, it decomposes really readily available into calcium, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, boron, magnesium, all the different things that this plant is made up of, because it's made up of all those different things. And it just started blowing my mind, just like, hey, why would you want to get these bottles that have like these certain limited nutrients that are always the same thing, ammonium, calcium carbonate, and ammonium and nitrates, and calcium nitrates, and whatever, potassium, salt, all the different little combinations of potassium, those macro elements. I was like, why would you want just like the bread, or like the butter and potatoes of it, when there's all the different seasonings and spices of all the trace elements and hormones and stuff that can really bring that nuance probably and flavor to and complexity to your medicine. And that's what learning through, like, spending all this time just like learning about plants all of a sudden, and being at the grow store, and like having this time to just start picking up these books and go down these rabbit holes. I think what was one of the very first ones, TLO. Yeah, that first year when we were in Trinary, right after that very first fall up here in the UP, 2014 and 2015, TLO was the first time we got that. Because I'd started working at the grow store. We were using Nectar for the Gods. And it's funny, I always tell people that like Nectar for the Gods is like a gateway drug into living organic soil. Because Nectar for the Gods really helps you see like the ingredients that you would use in building like super soil, like Subcool's super soil mix and stuff like that, which is something that had been, a lot of people knew about back at that time, and people were using it with success. And when I started seeing that, man, all this nectar for the gods line, which was growing some really great herb, super flavorful, nice buds, colorful, all that. When you look at all these parts, ingredients, they're like the same thing that you would just mix into the soil in the first place, but it was leaving. So it's funny, yeah, the super soil thing evolved for us at the same time as bokashi, because that Herculean harvest thing, it was called, left like a calcium layer on top of your pots. It would leave this sludge of like hard calcium on top of your pots. And we were trying to figure out how to deal with it. It would dry out and cake up, and you couldn't water through it. And they said to use the enzymes and stuff, but we were just trying to figure out how to deal with it. And around that time, I had like stumbled across, I was like looking up genetics and this and that, and stumbled across the PFA group on Facebook, which I don't know if you ever were a part of that one or remember that one. The Probiotic Farmers Alliance. Yeah. Alan Atkinson there was doing really pushing this sub-irrigated planter method with lots of probiotics. With bokashi, it was his like probiotic of choice there, and really talking about how like their method, yeah, the main substrate in the earth box that they're using was just a soilless medium, and they would top dress this bokashi, and they would grow this incredible white fuzz mat on top of their soil. I was like, I was seeing pictures of it. It's like something I'd never seen before. I was just like, what? And I was seeing these healthy plants with this incredible fuzz mat growing underneath them. I was like, that's the truth right there. Like that's organic. Like that looks, like you see this mold going on, these healthy plants, like that's organic as it gets. But they were, yeah, basically only feeding through that fuzz mat. They would top dress biodynamic cow manure compost, and claiming that compost contained every single element and food nutritional need that your plant would have, and it would be delivered to the plant via the essentially like this like mycelial web of the bokashi, is like the way I was looking at it. And I was just like, okay, man, I wonder if, this bokashi that's like breaking down this compost. So I started looking at the bokashi's like, man, this stuff might break down that crust layer on top of the nectar for the gods. And sure enough, it did. It did a great job at it. That bokashi really did a great job breaking down that extra calcium on top, and the plants loved it. And I was hooked, that was it. I was like, whoa, we got this soil. It's alive with these microbes now. They're growing. I can see the fuzz right in front of my eyes. All of these bottled nutrients that we're using are all just stuff that we could mix into our soil to feed the microbes in the first place. Like, why are we constantly fucking sitting here mixing up every tablespoon and teaspoon of 12, different bottles, and checking the pH and making sure everything is right? Like, I was just kind of like, man, we can just be putting it all. And I started reading these books more and more, and the True Living Organics, and then shortly after, like Teaming with Microbes, and just started really comprehending, like, man, it's all about the soil. And if you can put all of these different types of plant decomposing plants that contain all of these nutrients that they've mined from the soil, and they're all breaking down at different rates and stuff, and you can load your soil up with that, you don't have to worry about mixing up all these different jugs and bottles and measuring the pH and all that. And you can grow beautiful plants. You just keep them watered, and they're happier, and they taste better too, and they look better, and to me, and they felt better, and the whole process felt better. And yeah, I think I really honestly, big shout out to that group, the PFA, because man, that place really got me going in like 2015 or or so with the bokashi thing, and there was just so many really bright heads on there at the time, and um, started to learn more about like the dragonfly earth medicine people, and build the soil was going on. Jeremy Silva there was spreading lots of information, and learning about the Clackamas Coots mixes of soils, just to keep things more simple but complete. And like I said, I was working at this grow store at the time too, so I was like helping place these big orders in the spring for growers to get their amendments and stuff. And a lot of people were looking at me for answers just because I was the guy behind the counter, and because the boss was looking at me because he didn't know about this shit either. He's a hydro grower, and he's like, Max, we need to sell more soil. All these outdoor growers need soil and stuff. Like, let's do this. How do we do this? And the first year we just bought so many amendments, and it was, we didn't have the distribution figured out quite right. And we probably were lucky if we broke even getting rid of all of these amendments and stuff at the store. But by the next year, we had located a better compost source, and we were getting, a couple of 40 yard trucks delivered. We got, like 120 yards dropped off right away. And started, moving compost and amendments to people a little bit more, and just kind of, and then eventually that turned into, getting our own like house blend, like soil mix at the store, because that became a thing, so, it was definitely happening before, 2014 and 15, obviously, like people were definitely growing outdoor, but I wasn't seeing many people growing outdoor in like very advanced like methods. There was still just a lot of people just kind of throwing cow shit on top of plants out in the field. I never saw greenhouses, until we built them, essentially, like and they were ghetto little, PVC over top of, rebar pounded in the ground, or like bolted into for, whatever, all sorts of different configurations to make hoop houses. But essentially it was like we were really all learning together at the same time, like how do we get soil here and make these bigger outdoor grows and get big pots and fill them, and how do we do it affordably? Because also, again, the UP is the middle of nowhere, and logistically it is really, really difficult to get like large amounts of soil weight volumes here for a decent shipping price. Very often, I mean, even like our closest big compost distributors near us were like 4 or 5 hours away or something like that. In Wisconsin, even there's a couple down in the mitten, but still pretty 4 or 5 hours away. Every time it's costing, just as much for the truck as it is for the compost. So it was just everybody kind of learning together. How do we get what we need up here to like scale up to the size that we envision ourselves growing at? How do we do it like these guys have been doing it out in California, and we didn't have all of those outlets figured out, aside from getting pro mix and stuff like that, ocean forest soil through the grow store. It was like, wasn't really gonna necessarily always cut the cake when we were trying to get people into big containers and lots of them. So
So it's funny that once you got into kind of talking a little bit more serious organics and shit, Chet just like fucking stopped and started listening. 86 people in chat right now, and it went from them kind of bantering a little bit back and forth to, oh fuck, we better listen.
that's funny. Yeah, man, I love that stuff.
So
Organic, get me going.
They do as well. Gus Groves in chat wants to know. Let me go back to it. Can you ask him if he's into mycology or mushroom cultivation in his soil? And he loves your hat, by the way. That was from way back. He's like, tell him I love his hat. Tell him I love his hat. There you go, Gus.
Yeah, man. I am into it. I definitely like it. I've planted some mushroom blocks in my hugelkultur mounds. I am very, very lucky actually in the last like 2 years, a bigger like indoor mushroom grow has popped up. Gourmet, edible, lion's mane, shiitake, oysters, all this stuff. These guys are cranking out mushrooms, and I was seeing just big piles of their substrate bags piling up in trailers, next to their house, and they're just gonna dump them off in the side of their field and like figure it looked like they're just like gonna figure out kind of what to do with it later. It's kind of like an afterthought, they're busy doing their thing. So I've got lucky enough. I got a trailer load delivered to me from them, and I'm got a bunch. I got some big piles of wood chips dropped off, and they're clearing power lines from me this fall right before the snows came. So I got a little bit of wood chips on top of that main pile of kind of spent blocks that they gave me, kind of incubating for the winter. And yeah, hoping that we can spread that around here in the spring as some mulch. And then also probably gonna do some more intentional, plantings of like stropharia this year. Like I said, I've done some plantings. Like I haven't had like any of the like my Taki was one of the blocks I planted last year. They didn't fruit the first year, and that I can't remember. I may have planted some stropharia last year, but I didn't have any fruits really go popping up on me. So yeah, I'm into mycology in the soil for sure. I fully support all of the fungi and bacteria to do their job at decomposing all the organic matter and giving us the goods so that our plants can thrive. Oh, you might be muted or something.
Yeah, I am. I am. Sorry about that. So I
Oh,
guess
yeah,
it's a
good.
fair question to ask. I'm pretty sure, and again, I could be wrong, that that Upper Peninsula soil is probably super, super sandy up that way. I could be
My,
wrong.
no, my spot
So
is for sure.
how
Um,
the hell where do you start with turning that sand into some beautiful uh permacultured soil up there? Where did you start off on that? Where's step
yeah, so
one?
I mean, step one, yeah, dude. I mean, so hugelkultur, if people don't know about it, it's been definitely getting talked about a lot, and there's a lot. It's pretty straightforward, but hugelkultur is a great way to start, which is basically just burying a bunch of woody debris, sticks and logs and old stumps and brush. Um, that's like the one of the best ways you can start. What I did with mine, like so in so hugelkultur can be done, in all sorts of different fashions. The way they kind of, textbook lay it out is especially for like really compacted soils, actually, though, where there's not good drainage and runoff. So they will just drag woody material right on top of the dirt, and then they'll start, cutting what dirt they can away from the sides of the woody material and just pile it on and pile on any kind of organic matter, leaves and straw and compost if you can get it, manure, and you do these things in layers. And yeah, and eventually, that first year is a little rough for plant growth because you've got all these big air pockets and channels from the branches decomposing. But as the wood decomposes, it starts to hold moisture really well, and it gives a home for fungi and bacteria to kind of hang out when things are too dry, or too hot on the surface of the soil, or too cold or too wet or whatever. They can kind of retreat into these different like little pockets and microclimates within the hugel mound. There's like lots of all these little microclimates. So it really helps support the establishment of microorganisms really well. And I mean, if you're on hard compacted soil, like that's a great way. You can pretty much only go up, because if you start digging yourself holes, you're just digging yourself a cereal bowl, where water's gonna fill in and flood your plant out, the next time it rains. So if you're in like clay soils and stuff like that, you want to go up and grow plants in the top there, so water can drain out and get to the clay, and you've got that. You've got a nice bit of aeration between the top of your mound where you plant and the soil. In my sandy soil, I was able to dig trenches because I am inside of greenhouses, because we do have such a short season. Yeah, greenhouses are very much essential in the UP if you want to get a quality crop. You can grow outside, and they've been doing it for years and years up here, outside without covers. But yeah, if you want to get something really, really worth writing home about, I feel like you're probably gonna need plastic to cover. But I forget where I was going with that. Digging trenches. Hugel not being able to go tall, basically, in a greenhouse. So dug trenches and put all sorts of wood. I had a big brush pile here with a bunch of cut up logs and trees that they took out of my front yard before I moved in. We're in the backyard all chopped up and in a big pile, and put some of those in there. And I went and collected some from my buddy up near Lake Superior here. He lives in like kind of a wetland that's roughly managed by the DNR or something. So they come through and clear a lot of like the lower growth. So there's just a bunch of like really easy pickings, like, small diameter, kind of like sapling, softer ramial wood, they call it. That's like real good to kick start that biology, because it's got a little bit more like sugar and sap and soft tissue. So I drug a lot of that in there too. But yeah, definitely recommend hugel culture if you got access to woody scrap materials and stuff, and you can kind of like just build a brush pile and start burying it with soil and mulch and compost and manure. And like I said, that first year is maybe you plant some stuff in it. Like I planted in mine the first year and things went all right, for sure. But they get better with time. Definitely each year they get better. And if you ain't got access to trees and branches and all that good stuff, and you need to start somewhere, building soil, organic matter, lots of straw, and compost. Lots of leaf litter and straw if you can. And then that compost should have some biology, ideally, to start making contact with that straw and leaf litter and stuff that it can chew on, and start turning into soil for the top of your whatever you're in.
Right on. So I definitely appreciate your love for the soil, 100%. By the way, so I kind of mentioned to you in the invite, I knew you would be an amazing grower, a good guest when Mr. Jodry recommends you, and as he did. So
yeah, that's real kind of him, man. That's awesome.
I'll tell you the story on this a little bit here, as I did to Turp Wizard yesterday at off air. So if it has any merit, he came pretty, in my opinion, pretty highly suggested by Mr. Jodry. It was just after the Regen conference, and I hit him up and was like, "Hey, man, sorry I missed you, brother. I was really hoping to get down there and talk with you, blah blah blah." And he's a little bit of back and forth there, and he's been on the show a couple of times, and I kind of thought, oh, well, with this new adventure with Mr. Burner there, I'll see if I can get it in. You know what I mean? So I hit him up and I'm like, hey man, you think you could hook me up with a burner? You know what I mean? Just try to get him on the show. And his reply was, and again, I kind of thought about this after the fact too, his reply, because he if you listen to him, you know, there's a lot of times that what he's telling you has like multi-level meanings to what
Sure,
he's
sure,
trying to tell you.
sure.
So he's like, well, he's a busy guy, but you should really check out these guys and talk to them. And he recommended you and Turf Wizard.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, cool. You know, obviously these guys are real serious about their craft and, you know, amazing growers. Obviously, otherwise he wouldn't have suggested them. And
That's too cool.
then I kind of got thinking about it as well as about the reply, and it was a twofer. It was a twofer parallel kind of thing. I think that what he was trying to tell me there was a here's a couple of good leads on of some amazing people. One, and two, I think it was a little bit of eh, you want to talk to these guys. You know what I mean? This is a little bit more quality content than what you
That's
were
funny. Yeah.
fishing for there, brother.
Yeah,
Stay
man.
true. Stay
Uh,
true is what I kind of got out of that. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was the story on how I found you, my friend.
Dude,
Was
that's
through that.
yeah, that's too cool, you know, like really is an honor to come recommended like that. Uh, you know, haven't got a lot of chance to like, you know, really share a lot of time with Kevin or anything, but um yeah, just cool to be
Obviously
able
memorable.
yeah, cool to be able to like hang out enough to, you know, to just like yeah, get invited onto your show, man, because yeah, it's my first time doing anything like this. So appreciate you having me.
Oh man, I appreciate you coming. So let's talk cannabis if you still got some time, man. And
Yeah,
want to.
yeah. We'll tack
So
up another
what are
oh man.
some of the your favorite cultivars you've come across there? What are you growing now?
Well, right now, um, one of the ones, and I think probably the one that really caught Kev's attention is this tag along truffle that I've been growing for a couple years now, which is this strain from a breeder. I think his breeding handle was Comic Book Genetics. His handle is like the Danky Bank on Instagram. Uh, he made this genetic that came to me as tagalong truffle, and you know, I think that it may at first it was labeled one thing. It was labeled a thin mint was definitely the female, but he thought it was this Sakura male from Bodhi that he was working with. But after seeing pictures, me explaining the flavors and stuff I was getting from it, he's like at the same time he was doing a pollination with this a Bruce Banner Apollo male that he had made, and so he's pretty sure that the plant that I'm rocking is this Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie crossed to Bruce Banner Apollo. And yeah, man, that thing is a champ. I love her. She is just huge outside. She goes real big, and she goes a little bit later than I'd like for the UP. Like, you know, she goes into like that last week of October probably. So she definitely requires protection. But also, you know, on the couple of years where I've just kind of like let her have it there at the end, just kind of like see what she can do, see what she can take. Man, this plant doesn't even flinch when it frosts out. I'll come outside and everything is hard, solid frost all around You know, all the comfreys are wilted and dead. All the basils are wilted. Well, basil's soft, but everything's wilted and dead in the garden. And tag along won't even be flinched. And you know, by the time noon comes around and everything's melted off, she's standing back up praying. So she really stood out as an outdoor plant that first year that I grew her, just for that, you know, that she was mold resistant. Like that first year I was like, didn't notice the terp on it necessarily. I was like, it doesn't smell like a lot, you know, growing compared to some of the other things that I was growing that year. It doesn't smell a lot, but man, this is a fucking huge plant. It's super easy to prune, just like these super long petioles on its fan leaves, and just super easy to big leaf and prune, and the buds are fat, like I said, and mold resistant. So I kept it, and I grew it again the next year, and started getting, you know, a little bit more into my hash making, and made some hash with the trim and smalls, and was like, holy shit, that smells really good. That smells crazy. Like I haven't, you know, I can't believe that plant that didn't really smell like much growing smells like this in the hash. And wow, okay, cool, whatever. And the next year I grew it, which was not 2021 but 2020. I had septoria blew in for the first time here at my house. At least it had blown in at my neighbors. I kind of, you know, was just like, oh, hope it never happens to me, and you know, got hit with it. And because of that septoria just kind of eating my leaves away and getting, you know, kind of getting getting the best of me that year, my buds just didn't fill out. You know, that's like the worst thing about septoria, really. It's like it doesn't rot your buds. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't like make them all, you know, fuzzy and full of mold and infected. It just fucking shrivels your leaf up, turns into crispy nothing, and before you know it, you ain't got no leaves to collect energy and sunlight for you and make your buds nice and fat. So, you know, 2020, when that happened, I had this garden that had some plants that were like halfway filled in. Like the trikes were there, the terps were there. You know, like there was some decent weed there, but like when it came down to it, like dried up after it came out of the drying shed, just like, man, was not like going to be on par with my buddies that didn't get fucked with septoria. You know, it was just buds weren't as filled out. And I had at this point, we had already bought a freeze dryer. I'm pretty sure, you know, I'd already had some hash making equipment, had been tinkering with that. I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna wash this whole crop and find out. You know, we got all this equipment to make hash. Like I'm just gonna, and so that wasn't live. It was cured material in 2020, and I watched all these different strains, and yeah, that tag along came out just super awesome. I loved it because it was pretty good in the wash, and the flavor was amazing. So this year, did it again, did it fresh frozen. That one's a winner right now for me. Another one I'm digging on right now is this PB and J is what I'm calling it right now, but it stands for Purple Bestet, crossed to Jaeger, everybody's favorite. It is something that I got from a breeder in Oregon, in Southern Oregon. He gave me some genetics. So a good while back, I got genetics through a mutual friend, actually. Just giving me a bunch of stuff, and he's like, here, take these seeds from this guy. Like he gives me all these seeds every year, and he's a good, great breeder, and he always has just the dankest seed. And I popped some seeds from him, and yeah, they like I was running the year that I ran that dude's seeds for the first time. I was running a bunch of other stuff from breeders that I paid money, you know, good money for, and this dude's seeds just stood out. And the Bastet, the first part of that cross, I think it initially had been called Isis. You know, it was like the Egyptian goddess, but Isis wasn't going over so well at the time and everything. So I think it got changed to Bastet. Is a black Afghani purple train wreck. So it's this black Afghani purple train wreck crossed to Jaeger. And this plant is just so tasty. That's my go-to jar. I smoke every day. It's just super dark purple weed. That tastes like kind of like wine to me is like one of the best ways I can describe it. It's definitely like kind of grapey and but also like kind of like citrusy and like but also kind of like musky and like it's that one's really cool. Um yeah, what else, man? What else do I got in the garden right now? The Cherry West back cross from Mean Gene is a clone I haven't been able to quite get rid of because it's so fucking tasty too, and it is done like in the end of September, which is a huge plus for us up here. It's just super super fast, and the flavor is just like I said, incredible. But I currently got a room of like testers going. I think I've probably got some other clones, but tag along.
If he froze or if it was me. Cheers, everybody. If you can hear me, if I'm not the one froze. Oh, so good episode 2. Cheers, Paisley. Here's if you can hear me. And my chat's still moving. Chat, can you hear me or did Paisley freeze? No, it must have been Paisley. Cheers, everybody. Looks like he's
Still
working on
there?
it. There he goes.
You
Yeah.
still there?
Hell yeah.
Cool. Yeah, sorry about that. Don't know what happened there. I'm gonna grab some water here. Yeah, I don't know quite where I was with this whole list of genetics, but got some stuff I'm really excited about coming up this spring. That was that BioVortex stuff, the Banana OG Black Dog and the Bubba's Gift Black Dog. And then also the cot cake from Stayfly Farms. Their genetics are great. I've run a couple of things from them and seen a bunch of their stuff run out outside up here, and it does really well. As well as one from Terp Wizard. I was able to meet him for the first time just a couple months back at one of the hash events down in Grand Rapids, and instantly kind of hit it off with him. Thought he was a really cool cat, for sure, and he kicked me some beans, and I've started this papaya grape cream cake from him. Yeah, so I think that's all of the ones I'm looking at right now. Oh, and then another one from my homie up here in the west end of the UP. He's doing some cool work. He's like, he's one of my indoor no-till inspirations for sure. He's awesome. The mother's milk female crossed to wedding crasher male. That's another one I've got popped right now. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at currently. Excited because Kevin did actually gift me a pack of the Gonzi seeds. And so I feel this, I feel like I'm tasked to do this open pollination with these Gonzis and help preserve this line of this Afghani line that he was kind of passing out to some people at the regenerative conference. He was really talking it up with these rotten sulfur, nasty, just like rotten terpenes. He said that they're putting males on some things. He said everything that they put it on had like a sulfur back end from the original mom version. So I thought that was pretty interesting and cool. And he had a cool story. I mean, this valley that this seed came from, had some major stuff happened over the course of the last couple of years since the seed's been collected, and these genetics, you know, may have been lost since then in its native region. So it's like kind of crazy to think that you know, we can help hold on to little bits and pieces of these things that aren't just in your average everyday you know, wedding cake cross that you're seeing.
Not to mention, it's got a cool ass backstory to it.
Right, totally. Yeah, man. No, I'm excited to check out the Gonzis for sure. That'll be a really cool project. One of my other dear friends up here got gifted a pack of them as well. So we've between the two of us, we're gonna try and bump some plants together and see what we can come up with, and hopefully get them around to some more people, you know, who anybody wants to check out some sulfur funky skunk down the road here. We'll hopefully help spread that preservation.
They wanted to know in chat, how do you combat that septoria?
Septoria. Yeah, man, that shit is a tough one. That's a real tough one. So I've seen most all of it done. You know, I've seen most everybody try everything on this shit, and the harder you try, the worse it gets. Generally, the more you spray, the worse it gets, because it really does. It's kind of, you know, it's trippy because it's like it's everywhere. Once you like are keyed in on it and you've had it and you've gone through the fucking trauma of having it on your crop, you start noticing it on fucking everything. It's everywhere, and plants all around you. And you know, so it's like it's out there in the world. There's nothing you can do to hide from it, really. You know, like I can't really tell you exactly what's going to trigger it to happen in your crop, but we do know that it spreads with, like, especially after torrential downpours and heat and humidity, when it can stay nice and hot and humid. But after a torrential downpour, supposedly what's happening is like the spores will stick around on the leaf litter from the year before, on the decomposed plants, whatever. Those spores are hanging out, and you get a nice hard downpour, and little raindrop splashes back up into some lower growth, and those spores, that's how they first get on. And then, yeah, if you have that nice spike in heat and humidity for a couple of days, that allows that spore to germinate, I think, and start to kind of go from there. And it'll start, and you'll just notice these like little perfectly kind of circle leopard spots starting to pop up, and they'll be yellow at first, but then they'll keep growing. They're like perfectly circle, and there'll be like brown crispy dry in the center and like yellow ring around it. And yeah, so like I said, when it gets spread initially by these raindrops, you know, so it travels in water droplets. So when you come through with a sprayer, you know, you're spraying water droplets everywhere, and you're blasting water droplets from plant to plant, and it can really take off like that. I've heard people say, you know, you can use labs, and you can use EM1, and you can do some of these things. And I haven't personally had complete success, at least that year where it really got me. You know, I was spraying hardcore labs and EM1, strong dilutions frequently. And like I said, maybe it was because I was like doing it almost too frequently. Maybe it's because I was using an atomizer. Since then, after like thinking about it more, switched to more low pressure sprayers to do my sprays, just so that I'm not kind of inadvertently blowing droplets and leaf litter from around the garden towards my plants. I have like a low pressure battery powered diaphragm, whatever sprayer. It's a really nice tool, but yeah, it's not blowing my plants around like the foggers and the atomizers are. So hopefully that kind of helps keep the spores down. But I guess to kind of answer the question more, you know, what what I think the best thing you can do if you see it right away is to try and hit it with a potassium bicarbonate, like a green cure or something, Millstop, whatever you got, available, but cheap potassium fungicide, and try and like kind of stop spore growth quickly, and then immediately inoculate after with good biology, with lab or EM1 or compost teas ideally, and gonna work or stop it. But that was ultimately what started me down the path of taking Elaine Ingham's soil food web courses, was just knowing that I'd seen people fight the septoria with sulfur and with copper and with all of the traditional fungicides and with the organic fungicides, and nothing was working. And knowing that just like this with ultimate learning about the whole idea of out competition and out competing in beneficial biology versus pathogenic biology, and probiotics versus pathogens, that fungi are going to outcompete fungi. The only way you're going to deal with a fungal disease is by having a fungal that's stronger than it, to take it out, to deal with it, to cover your leaf surfaces properly from the beginning so you don't get the disease. So that's currently what I'm working on, is just I think in theory, this last year I didn't have septoria really bad. I had some other seriously shitty problems happen that I think happened from a poorly brewed compost tea. But I didn't have nearly the septoria problems. But I think that with properly brewed compost teas and with good compost, that you should be able, leaf surfaces should be covered in biology. In nature, that is what is helping prevent disease, or that is what is preventing disease and preventing things from being just wiped out anytime a new pathogen blows in, is a biology that's everywhere in every forest. Every time a seed sprouts, it comes through, it's being born into the world, it's coming through biology. The slugs are crawling on it, ants are crawling on it, they're tracking little spores of microbes and bacteria on plants, and those leaf surfaces are getting inoculated right away. Whereas we as growers tend to constantly like use hand sanitizer on our plants and clean them off, and then feed them excess of nutrients, and they can really become a target for pathogens and pests, because they are real scrubbed clean. They've got no beneficial fungus covering them to kind of protect them, and they've got a bunch of nice lush nitrogen for the bugs to come suck on. And so it's I think that it's just about having well balanced nutrition and plenty of good biology to help fight disease.
They were asking if you've ever used C90 in chat.
Yeah, for sure. I've used C90. Well, it looks like my battery's getting a little low here. Oh, I got some dogs coming in. Yeah, I love C90. I use it pretty frequently. I will use it for foliar sprays. I'll use it when I'm making bokashi. Sometimes making little ferments and stuff or whatever. I'll or like putting it in my activated EM. When I'm activating EM, sometimes I'll just like mix a little bit of C90 in there to boost some mineral content. Good stuff for sure.
Kind of tied back to what you were saying before about the biology and all that good stuff there. It's kind of the part of the regenerative process there, isn't it? Kind of letting nature, the natural letting the flow of things kind of even out when new things are introduced, pests or whatnot, letting the natural environment just slowly even itself out in time is kind of the
Absolutely.
concept, right?
Yeah, man. And sometimes that doesn't happen on the time frame that you want it to. But it happens. That's natural succession. That's the way the world works, man. You abandon a plot or whatever, and grasses start growing, and the next order of successions will always move in. You disturb soil, and eventually it will turn back into a forest someday. Is what it's trying to do, ideally.
Right.
Yeah,
So
man.
let's kind of do how we doing that time.
We're
For
doing
one.
pretty good. I mean, yeah, I'm good right now. If you are, I don't know if there's anything specific that you wanna wrap into a little bit harder, or
Well, I was gonna kind of take the tack of a hash, man. As I look down your page, man, you've got a lot of beautiful hash there. When did that love of things kind of take hold, and when did that process start?
yeah, man. That is, goes right back with my whole journey, I guess. I got my first bubble bags when I was in high school. I think they were like $350 or something for a little crappy set or something. I don't even know what the brand was. I can't remember. The local grocery store, and it was just, oh wow, we can make hash with our trim and stuff like that. Like, yeah, let's make hash. I didn't even really, I'd gotten a little bit of bubble hash at like festivals and stuff at that point, but hadn't really seen much of it. Got some bags, borrowed them around, didn't dry it properly, molded little patties of bubble hash. And, that didn't take off too hard with us. Smoked some on some joints and shit like that. But yeah, moving to California there for that first winter, took my first dab in like 2010, I guess that was, with the skillets. And it was, BHO, open blasted, like PVC tube type thing. And right away, though, I mean, that shit got me so high that, yeah, I was instantly like, what is going on with it? You guys made this fucking shit with your trim and your weed? Like, how? What? And so I got into doing the blasting super ghetto style right away, when the first, right after first taking dabs and learning about it, we, went down to the hardware store, got like a PVC tube and screw cap, and, drilled holes in it, coffee filters, all that shit. And we're blasting in Pyrexes on the porch. And it was, just a terrible shit, but that was where it started. Cause I was just, kind of blown away by this golden goo that was getting us so freaking ripped. And I don't, who knows, maybe it was the butane too, but that was, yeah, it was like 19 or something like this. And kind of brought it back to Michigan, showed some kids, they had glass tubes, pretty short. We figured out pretty quickly that the PVC was a bad idea. But glass tubes then with the pipe clamps, and still like a finer mesh screen. I forget what the hell what kind of mesh screens they're using, but and got into that in Michigan a little bit. Still pre vacuum purge though, even, and just whipping it on top of the skillet, and doing this whole thing, and still just being just really just kind of really tripped out about it, like, holy, what is this, what's this is cool, we're making this crazy thing. But then started learning, again, this whole process actually happened fairly quickly, but learning, oh, you need a vacuum oven to do that properly, you need to purge that gas out. And I was like, oh shit, okay, we've been smoking all this gas, like, oh boy, that's no good. And so I got a little vacuum purge pot, and we were just kind of tinkering with that for a while. but right away, you know, after kind of getting into that, and like some other kids are really taking off with it. Like I was starting to see actually at that point, like really nice shatter coming around. And this is like, yeah, again, like probably 2013 or 14 or something like that. And starting to see like really nice shatter come around. And but I'd kind of, you know, I'd seen that like other side of it where like you could be kind of a less than perfect with your process, and there was like a dirty, it felt dirty and just like a poisonous and all these things. So I just kind of like started straying away from it in general, and just kind of, yeah, kind of left it where it was and just was like, yeah, no, I'm not into dabs, I don't do hash, I don't do that whole thing. I'm just smoke weed. um but then but I mean, you know, whatever, I would still take dabs and that. But then working at the grocery store, we got a rosin press on the shelf, you know, because hey, we were, you know, we were the ones behind the computer ordering shit for the grocery store. Like, what should we put on the shelf next? And we get this rosin press in at the store, and honestly, I had never even considered using it. I was just like, got it because I thought it was cool to, you know, to offer and have. But one day we shut the store down, and this kid I was working with is just like, yo, let's press some of your nugs out on that rosin press. And I was like, yo, can we do that? You know, I was like, fuck yeah, sure. Who's gonna find out? Who cares? Yeah, let's do it. We plug in the rosin press at the shop, and had some really nice weed at the time. It was this gobbledygoo, I think it was called, from Alpha Chronic Genetics. It was I can't remember. It was, man, some crazy cross. It's like a Las Vegas purple kush cross. I can't even remember, man. That was some tasty ass weed though. Uh, but squished it in the rosin press. You know, took this really nice bud and squished it in the rosin press, and out came this like really nice light golden hash. And took it and dabbed it right away, and oh my god, the flavor, you know, it was like lilacs or something. Like this strain was like really lavender kind of heavy, and it was just like, what, like this is the most amazing flavored hash I've ever had. And that's all we did was just squish this bud between these heat plates. Like, holy shit. So that opened the door for me. And then we kind of, I just got, you know, I knew right away. I started watching all sorts of videos and getting back into that whole, like, how are these people doing this rosin thing, you know, like how do the best people doing it or whatever, and what can I do to make some decent rosin. And I never really got far into the flower rosin thing. Like I don't have really not pressed much flower rosin at all, other than when we were first like learning about pressing. Because right away we just started pressing our keef, our trim bin keef, after we were trimming the outdoor crops and stuff. That first year that we came in contact with the black dog from Biovortex there was like a year that like hash, that was one of the first years we had a rosin press. And my homie who was growing it, he made a lot of it into BHO, but that was one of the first years we had the press around, and that black dog just dumped keef in the trim bins, and he had so much keef. And so we started rosin pressing it, and this black dog rosin was just, again, so tasty, and it was just like nothing we'd ever had. So it's just started like, okay, like, well, I got to get a rosin press now, you know, and gotta, you know, kind of crappy or rosin press, but still cost a shit ton of money, like $1,200 for this kind of crappy rosin press. And I forget what best value bag, you know, I don't know, whatever. And just was doing dry sift kind of stuff with it at first. And I had because I noticed that the people that were doing bubble hash were using these freeze dryers, and I didn't have the space or really the know-how on how to dry the bubble hash properly, like with the microplane and the sieve. Like I tried it a couple of times. I did a handful of runs with the little 5-gallon machine, and I'd freeze my patties and I'd sieved it out, and or I microplaned it out and stuff, and it turned out all right. I don't know, like the rosin kind of turned out a little bit darker, and and it was turning out all right. But then some guy who was shopping with us at the shop, he came in one day. He's like, Max, like, what's up? How do these guys do in the rosin? Like, I want to get set up with the whole rosin setup. And I was like, oh, well, the big dogs are, using these freeze dryers. It's like, get me one, order me one. So, all right, got you. Get him set up with it, and he ran it, and then decided that it wasn't for him. He ran it a couple of times and was like, I don't know, this is all too much. And he offered it back to me. He's like, you want to buy this thing for, $2,000 or something like that, less than, and that was, a couple $100 less than he paid for it or something. And I hit up my boy Josh over at Swampy Acres there here right away. I was like, man, Josh, and he's like one of my number one ideas people, you could say. Me and Josh just like talk, have a million ideas all the time, and just always rapping about all sorts of stuff. And so I'm like, man, Josh, this guy's got a freeze dryer, and he says $2,000 for it. Like, how about I throw down 1,000, you throw down 1,000, find out what's going on. And he agreed, and so we got this freeze dryer, and we made some hash. I took it home and I started making some hash, and I was making these big batches. Like, I would fill in this thing up and I would dry it and I'd pull them out and I'd put it in the rosin press, and nothing was squishing out. Like, nothing was coming back. And I was just like heartbroken, and for a while I put it away, and it was just like, whatever, like, I ran through whatever trim or smalls I had, and I was just like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But it was so disheartening. And when we started using the freeze dryer for like all sorts of other things, we started learning about, just what kind of weird food products can we make with the freeze dryer. Like, oh my God, the possibilities are endless. We went down that rabbit hole for a little bit until I got material to wash again. And same thing, kind of like washed that another round and filled the freeze dryer. Boom, nothing's coming back in the squish. And I'm just like really disheartened, like, oh, what the is going on, man? Like, what is going on? And I hop on, I don't even know at the time. I don't think super big into Instagram yet. And maybe it was like on some Facebook hash group or something, and just try like kind of poking around to see, because not even many people had freeze dryers really at that point either, and just kind of start poking around to see who had freeze dryers and what they were doing different, or find somebody who would talk to me about it. And I find somebody, and he's like, oh, you change the shelf temp to 45. Go in and I find the shelf temp setting set at like 120. And I've just been cooking my hash, for those first couple of rounds. I don't know how much bubble hash I just cooked in the freeze dryer. Just baked it to a crisp, and whatever, got changed the shelf temp, and boom, we were off and running. And haven't looked back since. That was once we got that figured out and started making this really beautiful rosin. Just kind of was like, yeah, let's keep doing this. This is fun. This is cool. Like, we're making something, like, it was something that we're really proud of. And even though at the time there isn't really necessarily an established market for it, especially up here, and people were still getting plenty of money for their BHO. So some of my friends are kind of looking at me like, why the hell are you doing this? Like, you can just blast it. It's so much easier and you still make so much more money. I'm just like, we like it. It's cooler. I don't know. Like, it feels better. It tastes better. Like, I don't know. It's cool, and so we kind of just stayed on doing it. And like I said, at that point, it was still all just really like trim and smalls bubble hash getting washed and freeze dried. And so it was all cured material. It really wasn't until, the last 12 months, a little bit more, last 18 months or so, that I've really been testing and doing a lot more fresh frozen material and really learning a lot about that. But yeah, that's kind of that.
So since we talked about it and he's in chat, I got to tip my hat to him. Mr. John Indra, actually the guy that created and patent the process for BHO, the original creator of the process, is in chat. So
Oh wow.
cheers,
Oh
Indra.
holy crap.
I hope that
No way.
I hope the PCB pipe stories didn't make you cringe too bad, but it is real life.
Yeah, dude. I know I wasn't the only one there, you know, for sure. But that was yeah, that was no good. That was no good. That's funny. But
I
it
was
is
sitting there kind of as you were telling the stories. I knew I was like looking at chat. And I was like, oh, I know he's cringing. I know
oh
he's
yeah,
cringing.
dude.
But
I mean, for sure. It's cringeworthy. It's definitely cringeworthy, you know. Yeah, dude. It was, you know, it's all just that learning curve. I guess I've been real fascinated lately, listening to all these different hash podcasts and stuff, just like learning though the fact that, you know, because after I kind of had done my little stint with BHO and realized that, man, I ain't about this stuff. I gotta know this stuff is whack or whatever. It's just for like you know, it's a hype thing or whatever. Wasn't my scene. But then I kind of realized I've been learning about how much BHO actually changed the game for solventless hash too. And just like we had a new standard to live up to, or like, you know, hash had a new standard to live up to be able to melt so cleanly, and developed like, you know, all of these new methods for dabbing, you know, because of BHO. You know, we had all these new nails and dab rigs and all of these new you know, hash vaporization contraptions, and a new standard of like how clean things should burn and what they should taste like. And yeah, and then you know, the innovators of our cool lean culture found a way to do it with just ice and water, like traditional ways that they had been doing it, you know, I guess, really, you know. But just kind of popularized it and got it to scale. And I think it is interesting, like how and you know, I try not to poo poo, you know, like sure, like I believe, you know, the things that I do because I believe that they are what I think is the best way to do them. But I know that there's a million ways to do all of these processes. There's a million ways to skin this cat, as we like to say, and they all work just fine, and they can all create a really great product. I'm not saying that BHO is bad. I've had great BHO, and there's lots of great BHO makers, and there's lots of great growers that grow in synthetic, you know, in synthetic systems too. Like I'm not, you know, not trying to knock anybody for the way they do things. But yeah, no, for sure. I think I think it's hash culture is definitely super fascinating, and it's like I said, ever since I've gotten more and more, like I've just gotten carried away with making it because I think it's so much fun. Like, and by default now I've had to kind of become a hash smoker because I've been making it, and I've been just like trying to learn about it more, and so yeah, I think hash culture is really cool, honestly. And I'm not into, you know, I'm not like a glass collector or anything like that, but I'm fascinated by it. And yeah, there's a lot going on there. It's like really pushing the innovation side of our cannabis, really.
that's for sure, man. I tell you, man, your rosin's beautiful too,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you.
Beautiful
Appreciate
work
that.
there.
Hell
So
yeah. Thank you.
again, a repeat question from last night. As far as like the pressing process goes, do you prefer a hydraulic press, or do you prefer more of the hand touch of the pull method there, the pump pull
Well,
method?
yeah, I mean, I it's funny, it's hard to say. Like I had the hand pump first, and I switched to the hydraulic. And at first I was like, fuck, dude, why did I switch? Like I fucking, this hand press was way better. I could kind of do that fine pressure increments better, I felt like, with the hand press. But as I've adapted and gotten better with the hydraulic thing, I mean, like my system is really dialed in now, and I don't think it really makes a whole ton of a difference to me whether it was done with a hand pump or a hydraulic pump. I just know that we're using that pure pressure Pike's Peak press, And like I just know that like some of the cheap, like I said, I didn't have like really nice hand pump press before, but it was like leaking oil from the cylinders, and stuff like that. So when I just was seeing that, like, things that weren't manufactured well could have lots of potential issues for just like whatever mess and contamination and stuff, that the hydraulic was a cool option. It's just, or their pure pressure press at least really felt like it wasn't gonna have any kind of issues like that. And yeah, once you get your system dialed in, like I said, I mean, I don't know if it makes much of a difference.
Right. So is there how big of a swing in, like, say, temperature and time is there from strain to strain? Is there that big of a difference, or is there pretty much a set recipe that you kind of come up for? And I'm not asking you to divulge it. Is
No,
you know
no,
what
the
I mean?
rosin, no, no, dude. I try to be an open book, man. Like I love sharing information. I think, open source is really cool. Like, I think cool for people who like have their special secret thing, or they want to keep it that their secret weapon. But I'm just like so appreciative for all the people that have shared information over the years that like help me to get to the point where I am. And I want to help anybody, on their path too. So I'm totally down to share. No, I don't have any special technique. There is that, it's just kind of going for it, like depending on resin and like how sticky it is or tacky it is when we're loading it into bags. I might like adjust the temperatures a little bit, go a little lower on the temperature. Or if it's from like a cured dried material, I might up the temperature a little bit. I might do it for 2.5 minutes, or I might do it for 4 minutes, just kind of depend. I'm just kind of reading the resin as it's coming out, just kind of reading what's going on. Um, but no, I haven't seen, it's funny even with the rosin, like maybe it's just that I'm not like a, refined enough hash palette or what, but I don't see that much differences sometimes between, like, even say the first and second wash, or even like micron sizes sometimes when I'm separating things out and trying to get all meticulous about keeping things separate, like um the shades of color and the end product end up being really similar, the flavors end up being really similar, like just so much that um yeah, I've been starting to mix or like do full spec more often, just because it's like, I don't know, it's like so much extra work. And then what, you're creating these different products that, like, now somebody, who got the cream of the crop from your drop is hoarding the super fire, and everybody else is like has to get the tails of what you made, like it's, or an inferior product, when in my mind it's like that it's not an inferior product. And so to even separate them out like that and kind of like grade it, um just didn't make sense. I don't know. For some things, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely some grading that can be done, especially like strain to strain. You'll see a different resins drop in different bags, and I have noticed some flavor differences, especially when you get ones that like have the big heads, things that are actually like when you catch a lot in your 160 bag or whatever. Some of those bigger micron size bags to me sometimes have the best flavor, even though they look the ugliest when you're pulling the bag, and you're like, oh, that's food grade or whatever. And we do set it aside for food grade, but sometimes when I go back and smoke it tastes really fucking good. And so yeah, just kind of play all of them by ear, just like as far as like cleanliness and flavor. Once you kind of see that there's a line being crossed, when I'm pulling bags, like, oh, this one's really dirty, or this one doesn't have much or whatever, I just kind of try and lump things kind of the most in a full spec as possible, but sometimes I like won't keep a 45 bag. Sometimes it'll be 73 to 160. Sometimes it'll be a 45 to 120, or something like that. But it just kind of depends on whatever is happening. Usually, like, yeah, first run through with a new material, we'll do like all the bags and just kind of see where everything is at, and then after that I'll kind of reduce down to just the minimum amount of filtration bags I need to catch a full spectrum type product.
So again, this is kind of pretty stereotypical, I guess, but your heart kind of took you to the organics kind of grow style. But now that you've been in it for a while and you're kind of a serious kind of hash artist as well, do you feel that it is kind of an edge in hash making versus uh, artificial or salts produced cannabis? Do you think there is bigger heads, a little bit more flavor there? I mean,
I think probably for sure in the flavor department. Uh, again, like I'm gonna not try to poo-poo anybody too much because I know great hash makers who I really respect who grow with synthetics and they put in fucking work and they make beautiful product. But no, I mean ultimately, and I mean I know that you can grow big, yeah, big trichomes and everything. You can get big numbers, you can get beautiful hash, but can you get the complexity of flavor by only feeding with that certain prescribed little mineral IV regiment that you're getting through your nutrient line? In my opinion, you're never going to get the kind of nuance and flavor as you are from something that has just access to like every trace mineral of the periodic table and then some, because of all of the other weird little vitamins and chemicals and hormones and, like I said, enzymes and acids and all that stuff that are being produced by fungal and bacterial interactions with roots. Yeah, you're getting so much more different chemistry going on down there that we can't even possibly control or comprehend or even try to like mimic, because the plant is really in control at that point. When everything is there, when all the right food is there and all the right microbes are there and everything, it's really just the plants calling the shots. Like, hey, what do I want to fulfill my genetic potential? Like it's got access to anything it wants, not just what you're telling it wants, so that you can have a nice big fat bud with big fat beautiful resin on it.
so with that kind of in mind, I can see that in a huge way. And again, I'm kind of just really getting back into soil, moreover, serious organic growing, to be honest with you. Before it was pretty
Sure.
much the dump every time. I'm ashamed to admit that as I learned more and more about being a proper steward as a, you know what I mean? Because once you open that organics door, you kind of see life a lot different. I was saying that with Turf Wizard last night, man. Once you kind of open that up and you get into microbes and all that shit, you see that you're like this in the whole grander scheme of nature and the
Yeah,
way things really work. And so yeah, what you're saying is very true, but I am also picking up on what you're saying there. And again, mentioned this last night with him is you're kind of hitting towards basically like a terroir in the soil that kind of cultivates a unique taste, I think. in the
Sure.
organics that you're talking about. But again, I think as you kind of brought up earlier in like the balance of things in the air and in the soil, I think that terroirs also up top when you're spraying like labs and stuff like that, you're bringing the bacteria and that up from like what's affecting the terroir in the soil. I think you're now affecting in the plant up top, and it's
Sure.
creating its balance above too. So I think
That
that might be something to do with it as well. We're not doing that in salts. You know what I mean? We're not spraying labs on our plants and all that good shit. They
and you
might
could.
be. They
And
might
you
be.
could, yeah,
I
you can
doubt it.
definitely mix it. You can definitely mix and match them. They're sure they play good together. No, I definitely pick up what you're putting down, and I agree with that to a degree, but I also, I think something that is really important to kind of like comprehend and to think about, like if you really do want to get into the definition of terroir and having an expression of your land, is that when I'm bringing kelp meal to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and top dressing it on my fucking garden, that is not an expression of the Upper Peninsula. That's something from an ocean from 1,000 miles away. That is not expressing my terroir. That's it's feeding my plant with an organic input, and that's cool and great. And I still do that. Like, don't get me wrong, I import all sorts of organic fertilizers in bags. I'm not completely like make it my own like ferments. I do make a lot of my own ferments and little things like that, but I do buy a lot of stuff too. But I think it's important to recognize that when you are buying lots of like store-bought inputs, guanos and different things to be organic and to do super soil, in the under the idea that you are also expressing terroir, that you're manipulating terroir by bringing things that aren't native to your area. So yeah, while I do agree though that, like, when you have each soil blend, each different grower who's going to have a slightly different little top dress mix, of whatever their favorite dry amendments are, they are going to have a slightly different expression than the grower next door to them growing the same exact clone, with pretty much the same exact base potting soil, but you have slightly different mineral amendment mix. Yeah, you're going to get a slightly different expression, and that's, there's something to be said for that too. Whereas, when you're following traditional fertilizer program, you're kind of just you're following the recipe. You're,
So, and you run an indoor garden as well, organic?
yeah, but it's like small. It's like hobby size thing. It's for pheno hunting and to keep me sane in the snowy winters.
I can feel you there. I can
Yeah,
definitely
for
feel
sure,
you.
man.
So if you were to kind of go indoors, or somebody was thinking about necessarily taking it seriously indoors, what do you suggest? What size pots? Should they think more of a bed style? Uh,
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I mean, I've got a couple. I really like the earth boxes. I've been using those for a handful of years, ever since that probiotic farmers alliance group and Alan Atkinson talking about the SIPs, the sub irrigated planters, which are basically just like wicking pots. You see, they sell them to old ladies to grow tomatoes on their porch and stuff. It's the water from the bottom type container, where you water down a tube. You like fill a reservoir, but with a tube, and the soil, there's like a portion of soil that wicks the water up into the main body of soil. These earth boxes are awesome. They crush it. Plants grow so fast and so healthy. Like, the stalks are just so thick on them. Like, it's hard to explain the way they grow, and you can really load those earth boxes up with good fermented probiotics, since they are like an anaerobic type condition. You're not actively aerating the water inside of the reservoirs in each of these containers. So it actually plays really well with like the same type of like microbes that you use. Like EM1 is the one that I use, but like Labs is similar, but like the same type of stuff that makes cheese or wine, or bread, these beneficial like yeasts and bacterias that keep things healthy, really play well in the earth boxes. So yeah, something about those are really cool. And those things are only like 2 cubic feet of soil. So they're like 15-gallon pots, and they're great. They're awesome for somebody who just wants to like maybe say do one pot of organic soil, or like they want to do one light in their grow, without getting crazy about buying like a full bed and a bunch of soil to fill a bed and stuff. Like I totally recommend the earth boxes as a gateway to organics. They're super, the results are impressive, and yeah, you can truly see like how little inputs you need to grow a great plant, when everything else is kind of in place. Like at least moisture, with those things, they're always perfectly the same moisture all the time. That root zone is never fluctuating. So the biology in there doesn't fluctuate, doesn't dry out, doesn't die back, and they're just always in communication with the roots and with whatever is going on there. So I really like the earth boxes to turn people onto. But there's something to be said about bigger beds and stuff too. Just and the blue mat systems are pretty cool. I've got some like 3 by 3 foot lit raised beds and fabric pots indoors that are also like, I kind of designed them like sips. Like I cut bottoms out of the pots and I stuck some like net pots down in the bottom of those fabric beds and filled those with soil. And those soil filled net pots are like in a flood tray that's full of like lava rock. So the flood tray, hypothetically, I can fill up that flood tray with water, and the water from the flood tray will like wick in through those like net pots in the bottom of the fabric bed and wick up into the fabric bed. And I chose to do that because I like the earth boxes and everything, but I wanted to get into keeping beneficial bugs around a little bit more, like the beneficial mites and all of that type of stuff. And I figured that like having cover crop was probably one of the best ways to do that. Just so they have like a little bit more shelter and habitat. Those earth boxes just kind of have like a shower cap that goes over them to keep the moisture in the root zone. So it's like not really, it looks really clean and like the earth box grow looks real, like especially for people who like grow typically like more like cleanly hydro setups, and they're like dirt. No, dirt is dirty. The earth boxes look really clean, so that's kind of a plus with the shower cap and everything. But the beds are cool because you got more root zone. You've got more space to allow biology to take place and to spread out and have all these different little microclimates and different little pockets and zones where they have different things going on, and plants communicating with each other. I feel like is cool. And yes, I think that like those bigger, like the bigger the pot the better, kind of is I guess what you could say. But it also just depends on what your goals are and what you're going for. And if you want to do like a no-till thing like that, like yeah, pots are great, but just know that like you're committed. Like if something kind of goes wrong, it's you get Pythium or Fusarium or something like that, you might have to like empty that room out for a little bit and like dig it out, or like you might have to do some, it's not easy to get rid of that pot once you have something go wrong or whatever, it's that bed is almost like an investment. And the things don't go wrong with them very super often. Honestly, it's kind of like the bigger the pot, the less likely something is going to go wrong. It's the less likely that things are going to dry out, and then have a harder time getting back to the proper moisture when you rewater. it's a less likely chance that you're going to overwater in the first place because you've got so much volume for water to kind of like spread out in. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but all these things can still happen. But to me, it's just kind of like the bigger the pot you have, the more of a safety net you have, so to speak. And top dresses too, like, hey, oh, you accidentally threw down a little bit too fat of a scoop of kelp over here, or something like that, or you got carried away and did two scoops when you weren't looking or something. When you're in a big bed, that's not gonna like that's you're not gonna it's not gonna really change anything. You're not gonna notice it because there's a huge root zone, soil zone, buffer zone. Whereas in a smaller pot, like, the slightest kind of like a over amendment of one thing or another could kind of really throw the whole system out of whack with minerals and pH and stuff like that. So yeah, that's I guess my recommendation there. Earth boxes, check them out if you haven't. They're pretty cool.
I absolutely, again, there's been a couple of times where I just smiled through this because eh, uh when you brought up what he said that made me smile was uh basically the earth boxes were a good gateway, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's basically how they came about. Organics kind of came back through the garden. So I went a long period of time being in cocoa. Kind of went from soil, cocoa, kind of dipped my feet back into a silver soil mix until I got into like a hot batch, and then kind of couldn't keep up in the cook time. So I just said, yeah, pissed on it and went back to my cocoa
Yeah, this is too
ways.
much. Yeah.
So
For sure.
Smiley's Gardens, who I met through the show and whatnot, was talking organics all the time. Yeah, you should try this shit. Of course, he's killing it with his garden and shit. And he's like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
you should really try this. I'm going to put you together. And I kept ducking it for many, many reasons because I know that organics road, once you open that up, man, it's just
It's a wormhole. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It is. And I'm down. I'm just afraid. And I'm still like afraid of like bokashi and all that good stuff. Because
Yeah.
once I know I get down into that, I'm gonna be everything's gonna be fucking there'll be a place for all the waste. You know what I mean? And I
No,
think I'll
for
be
sure, dude.
absolutely hard to live with at that point. But anywho's, Smiley's like, okay, basically, I'll make you up some boxes and I'll drop them off. And I kind of ducked it for a little bit, and then we came up to Luzerne, Michigan, to the Bigfoot event. And
Okay.
he's got the earth boxes with him, and he's like, "All right, here you go. Here's the spot." I'm like, all right." So I bring him home, and of course, work out to do a side by side. So I take a strain that I've got enough of, and I've got some cocoa pots, and I've got these earth boxes. So I'm running TGA's Jelly Bean, and
Nice.
I got two in cocoa, two in the earth boxes, and again, a lot of the drawbacks I had with trying to get back into organics or soil was I didn't think it fit my method of up potting. You're always kind of told you should go big, transplant, let them roots spread out, and in my
Yeah.
spot, that's tough
Yeah.
to do, you know what I
Sure.
mean, in a rotation perpetual. But
Sure.
so he brings them back and I throw these in the earth boxes, and they went right by everything that I had
Just
heard.
blew
You
past
know what
them.
I mean? Yeah, as far as keeping
Yeah,
up and shit, I'm like, well, this could work in the system.
you could go.
And
Yeah,
they blew right by the cocoa. You know what I
yeah,
mean? They were everything you were talking about earlier. They were way bushier plants. The branches were thicker, sturdier. You know, buds were nicer. There's a flavor difference for sure. There was almost a 2-to-1, if not 3-to-1 yield in the earth boxes
damn.
versus cocoa, which is I didn't see coming, by the way.
You're right.
So,
Damn.
you know,
Damn.
hit again, but I
Yeah,
think
dude,
it
that's
was funny when you
cool.
said the gateway because it was kind of like that. It was like, here you go, kid. This is like a fail proof method. Go ahead, you'll love this. But it
Dude,
was
it's
her
true,
boxes.
dude.
There
It's
you go.
totally true. No, man. I tell people that all the time. It's like you can plug some like whenever somebody even who's completely new to growing, doesn't know anything about anything, like and when I was working at the grow store, I would try and get them into earth boxes. And I tried not to get excited about it when I was talking to them because I could obviously fucking blabber their brains out about soil and probiotics and stuff. But when you don't know anything about anything, and you walk into a grocery store for the first time, it can be really overwhelming because you're like, how do I pick what nutrient I need? How do I know what nutrient I need? Like, what are all the things that I need to grow a plant? And everybody you ask is going to give you a different answer. You need this product, that product, you need this or that. And I would, before I would actually get to like really explaining like what is going on with an earth box, I would try and just tell people like, yo, like you just want to see a plant grow and you want to see a plant grow good. And you don't want to even have to think about like, did I water it enough or not enough or whatever? Like get this earth box, put water down the tube and let it do the rest of the work. But at the same side, like, here I am still growing with them 5 years later. Like it's more than a gateway, like it is really good method to growing with, they really kick ass. And I think if you can kind of figure out, a good way to work with them, like, yeah, you can definitely do them on a bigger scale. It's just, yeah, they because they do stay so wet, you really do got to stay on top of preventing fungus gnats for sure. That's like their biggest nemesis, I'd say.
Right on. Yeah, fungus gnats can be a battle. I find just kind of trying to keep the top a little dry for a few bottom feed for a little bit if you can, so that you can
And
get
that
rid of that fungus gnat problem.
right, and that's like the earth box. It's all bottom fed, but it has that reservoir at the bottom where there's like a little mosquito pond that they will fly in and out of the tubes or any crack or I don't know. That is the only tricky part with the earth box is that, yeah, fungus gnats love them, man. Nematodes work great if you can stay on top of having pretty regular applications of the SF nematodes, and then maybe throw some like little rove beetles in there too. The rove beetles stick around forever. And the nematodes do a really great job at controlling them. Me and my girlfriend have been applying them every week for the last 5 weeks. We got like a big order for like a 50 million package of nematodes and split them into 10 million a piece back about a month ago, right when we got them, and they had an expiration date of like, somewhere around 420, which was really long. I thought for these nematodes, like, holy crap, that's a long time. These little guys are gonna live in the fridge. But every week, I've been going in and taking a look at the soil, putting under the microscope, seeing is there any nematodes from last week still alive, eating fungus gnats. And the first week there wasn't really anybody still left kicking. And the second and third weeks, I started finding like one or two nematodes still be alive at the end of the week. And we're talking out of one drop of water from one tiny scoop of soil, so it's like, okay, they're there. And so that was a good sign, but then also just checking our nematodes to make sure that they're still alive and active after a month. And hey, happy to report that they are, and they've been keeping the fungus gnats under control.
There was a question in chat on basically the pots versus beds question there. Which one would recover quicker if you know you were in the having problems in the soil, kind of like you were talking about?
Yeah.
Would it be
So
easier to recover in a pot, or would it be easier to recover in a bed? I guess was the question.
Yeah, I mean, probably easier to recover in a pot, because you can just dump the pot out. You can get a new pot and you can refill it, and whereas with a bed, like my approach, like if I've ever had like some questionable shit going on, I'm not necessarily going to dig that bed up and replace the soil. I'm going to sit and treat it, repeatedly with labs and EM1, and just try and like while it's on its downtime, after everything's been harvested out of it, and they might be sitting for a couple weeks, with no plants in them or whatever. Because I'm not super on the ball about having cycles just, and yeah, I think it's important to do stuff like that where you can kind of like remediate a problem, or have, if you have those bigger pots, you just have to be more willing to be patient and kind of test the waters when you plant the next plant, kind of cross your fingers. And if something is still fucked up, then yeah, you just wasted a lot of time, and that really sucks. But you're learning. I don't know. Luckily, like on these beds that I've had, like I don't know, this is like their 7th or 8th cycle maybe, and they've gone through weird cycles. There's been times where I accident, like a couple of summer, like I built them in the winter, and the first summer that I was growing outdoors and left them fallow, I just shut the lights off in there. Didn't think about it, it's kind of like whatever, shut them off, shut the room off. I'll get back to it in the fall when it's time. And that was a mistake, man. The beds dried out completely. Things were dead and weird and funky. And it took a while for the soil to kind of come back to life and get churning again. And now, like in the spring, when I moved my operation pretty much out to the outdoors, I'll still leave one 315 light on and clover going in there, and the blue mats, so that that soil's still alive and wet. And that seems to like really, it's ever since I've been kind of just like doing that, just like making sure the soil's like always wet and like always has some plants, some kind of roots going on in it. Like it seems to be ready to accept transplants at any time.
So, are you running earthworms and all that stuff in your indoor bed?
Yep. We got a bunch of the red wigglers, and man, I got those pill bugs out of control right now. Those guys are going nuts in there. But yeah, the whole host of like rove beetles and the H miles predator mites, and yeah, the good guys. The pill bugs have been interesting because, like, at first I didn't like think they were really a problem, but there started to be like a lot of them. It's like, wow, that's a lot of pill bugs. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, I don't know. And then they were starting to be a problem. They started chewing on some weed leaves, and I was like really kind of freaking out because there's a lot of pill bugs. And we've, gone to the potato trap, where you just kind of like cut a potato and I'll put it in the bed. And the next day when you come and check that trap, there's just millions of pill bugs all over this potato, and I can just kind of like scoop them up and I can toss them out to the chickens. They love to peck through those guys and go nuts. The ducks will eat them and stuff. And or if I'm, don't get to scooping them up, the pill bugs are all very focused on the potatoes instead of my weed plants.
That's an awesome little trick there. So are you utilizing stuff like that in both in the greenhouse and indoors, tricks like that, and banker and companion plants, both indoors, outdoors, as kind of IPM?
Yeah, I try to for sure. And that's all still just kind of like learning as you go, type things. I'm sure I've made some poor companion plant choices, but others have worked out pretty well. Um, you know, Potatoes are kind of a cool one. Actually, they're supposed to work really well with cannabis. They're supposed to be good cannabis companions. But also because they help kind of like till up soil. Like when you're growing in native soils, those potatoes can really help break up any kind of compacted soil. So they really help like increase the kind of like fluffiness of the area you're working with. But they also kind of act as a water sensor, So if you are walking through your ganja beds in your greenhouses and you notice your potato plants wilting on the ground, and they're going to start to get their wilt on a little bit quicker than the weed plants are, because they're up by the surface. They're growing their potatoes up near the surface of the soil, and things are getting hot and a little bit dried out. It's like, oh, potatoes are starting to wilt. I better water the ganja because they're next. So they're kind of like a cool little canary in the coal mine of moisture sensing. But then, yeah, there's like, pepper plants, I've been told, and I grew a bunch of pepper plants a couple of years back. We're going to do a lot of peppers this year, but pepper plants are just supposed to be great for their blooms, which are kind of towards our bloom time, towards the end of the year and stuff. They attract lots of little parasitic wasps that like to feed or like lay their eggs in aphids. And so the pepper flowers and pepper plants can be really good at like keeping the good little flying wasps around and fed with pollen, so that they can also lay their eggs in the aphids. And I think the more kind of do your research with what types of plants like you shouldn't probably plant with cannabis, which is things probably like brassicas, they say. But for the most part, I think you can plant like lots of different types of flowers and like aromatic plants that generally maybe repel pests or are like that, or attracting other flying, like I said, predators, that you're in good hands. I think it's pretty to look at when you're out in the garden. It's great when you can walk out in your garden and there's a bunch of pretty colorful flowers and bees buzzing around, and your little army of parasitic wasps like guarding you from aphids is right there at your disposal.
So do you think that it's possible, now that you kind of mentioned aromatic plants,
Yeah.
do you think it's possible to plant certain ones to kind of increase kind of terp production, kind of make them work for each other? You know what I mean? Outshine, something to that effect.
I don't know enough. Like, I don't know enough to like speak on that scientifically. I've definitely heard it kind of tossed around as a potentially a thing that is actually happening when plants are like communicating through their roots and signaling with each other. I don't know. I remember actually hearing something from Kevin some years ago when he was talking, and I mean, this isn't necessarily so much to do with a companion plant, but I guess take it for what you will. It's in the same ballpark. He was talking about judging. It was either Emerald Cup or Golden Tarps or something like this. They're doing all this judging, and there was all these samples coming through, you know, it's all blind judged, and there was all these samples coming through that just would have this sweet flavor to them. And he said he started marking down, like each time some of this a sample would come through that had this like extra thick, like creamy smoke or something like this, and this like kind of sweeter flavor. It was just like this thing that kept showing up through different samples. So you kind of put a mark by it. And once the results all came back, and he started talking to the farmers whose samples he had marked, he noticed that they were all sourcing their compost from the same compost maker in Sonoma County, who makes their compost with all the crushed grape, stuff, byproduct from making wine, and all the grape leaves at the end of the year from cleanups. They had this very like grape centered compost input, and it was noticeably in a blind taste testing affecting the flavor of the cannabis, even throughout multiple different strains. He was saying it wasn't even like it was the same strain grown, but it was like multiple strains were showing this kind of response to, different plant input that was causing them to have a different terp profile. So, I mean, it's not necessarily the same thing as a companion plant, but maybe, if you are growing different aromatic plants and using them as mulch, maybe that could be contributing somehow to flavor, to somehow some kind of like manipulation of the terps in your soil. But also, I don't know, I'm totally open to the idea that like plants are actually like communicating with each other in their root systems, and then maybe like causing each other to have different responses, or like want to produce different chemicals to tell the world around them what they want from it. Kind of. Yeah.
I'm a believer. I'm a believer in that as well.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
There's a question right here. Mr. Mike Denver says, can you ask him how he would recommend organic gardens, how to keep heavy metals down in states that would test for them?
Well, I'm not in like the tested world enough to really speak on this, probably. But it's something I've kind of been hearing throughout the industry is like, hey, if you can avoid ocean or inputs from the ocean, a lot of times it seems like right now that ocean inputs seem to be testing hot for heavy metals. I've heard like different kelps and stuff like that, and I don't know if it's just, I don't know if it's like pollution in the ocean, or if it's just like that the areas that they're harvesting these resources are kind of more commercial areas or what. But I've definitely heard that that those things can kind of contribute to hot tests. Other than that, like, I don't know, I guess, if you strong biology, is always going to be best, because biology is going to immobilize nutrients in the soil, heavy metals in the soil. If your plant doesn't necessarily need it or want it, and the biology can use it, like, it might just hold on to it and tie it up from being available to your plant. So I mean, there's all sorts of crazy like studies that like Paul Stamets has done and stuff with myco remediation, and like, cleaning up like mining waste sites with fungi, where he, kind of like helps you use the mycelium to sponge up heavy metals and minerals from these sites, and then like can remove the mushrooms, the organic matter mushrooms that contain all the heavy metals, to different sites and disperse of them so where they're at like a tolerable level for the environment. So I don't know, I guess like, yeah, in that realm of answering that question, that having lots of biology in your soil can help tie up heavy metals, probably. Oh, I think you might be muted.
I am.
No worries.
I think I hear that at least twice per show.
Yeah, dude, I get it.
So how we doing on time, my friend? I try to be very respectful of my guests because I'd like to try to get them back at some point. I don't like to overstay
Yeah,
my
man. I
welcome.
mean, I drank some coffee, so I'm pretty with it right now. But I mean, yeah, it's up to you. If there's still more that anybody wants to talk about, I'm open. Uh, but yeah, otherwise, it's been cool.
Well, not to bounce around a little bit, but again, I'm sure there's more than one person that would like to know the strains that are working for you outdoors in northern Michigan. If you can make shit work in the UP, you give a lot of people hope in Michigan.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
what's working for you, buddy?
yeah, man. So that's been fun these last couple of years. I've got a good handful of friends who are awesome organic outdoor growers up here. So we got to see quite a few genetics come through. And one of my good buddies has been rocking a ton of different jet fuel gelato crosses from Compound that actually did really well up here. Um, he's kind of moving on to test some other stuff, but there was definitely a handful of those that did really well for the mold resistance and great bag appeal. Um, there's a Gushers clone we've been rocking up here for a while that has like excellent kind of like spacing. So I think it's interesting, like things that have like that kind of more like lanky structure sometimes kind of can be good, that have that more spaced out internode, but have like big solid golf ball buds can be really good because they're a little bit less likely to get mold in those big thick cola plants are. But also sometimes some of those big lanky ones are, sometimes they don't work. It's not always a guarantee. Yeah, so that Gushers does good. Those jet fuel gelatos, a lot of those different crosses, those do pretty well. I kind of shouted them out earlier, but a bunch of the stuff from Stay Fly Farms has been really great up here. They're some outdoor breeders in Southern Oregon, and seen quite a few of their genetics finish really well up here. Great terps and stuff. Yeah, I've basically been finding that things that do well for outdoor growers in Southern Oregon uh can do pretty well for us here. They're a little bit higher elevation. Like, yeah, some of those places that are a little bit higher elevation, they can get those cold nights like we do similarly in the fall. I mean, we get it a little bit harder and faster, but um, you know, they get they get a decent amount of humidity there, and they have a short season. They're on a similar parallel to us. So because yeah, like I said, that purple Bastet Jaeger cross, I've done a couple of different genetics from that same breeder, and all of his stuff. He's from the Applegate Valley area, and all of his stuff was just killer for our climate, just mold resistant. And that was like, yeah, that black Afghani purple train wreck cross. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else really stands out for mold resistance and breeders who really crush it. Yeah, man, no, those are some of the ones that are sticking out to me right now. It's tough, like some of the early finishing stuff. Like, oh, I will say that, like, I've run only a couple of strains from Mean Gene so far, and those those have been good outdoor plants. He makes some good like earlier finishers with nice solid buds and great terps and stuff. So those have been cool. Yeah, outdoor breeders, man. Always, I'm looking for people who breed in the outdoors to grow outdoors for sure. That's real important to me. And then also I've realized something that is tough because we have such a short growing season and we have a limited plant count, and it doesn't always make sense to do if you're somebody like me where like kind of that your bread and butter is your outdoor grow. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to pheno hunt in that. However, like the plant that you would probably maybe throw away in the indoor or say, that's not really like cutting it, for in my indoor room. Outdoors could be a completely different beast. So I definitely encourage people to when they I encourage people to pheno hunt outside if they're looking for outside plants, because you can find something really dank inside and run it outside, and then like the second choice runner up was actually better for mold resistance or whatever, And if you ran the chosen clone, maybe it just was the one that wasn't quite cut for the outdoors. Oh, you're muted again.
A three for. I really respect that. That's something that I talk a lot about too. Is outdoor breeding. I think it's critical in our phase in cannabis right now with as much indoor cultivation and breeding that's going on. I kind of feel like the path we are on for the main part is weakening the plant. I think we're going to come across a point where we're setting ourselves up for like a banana incident or something to where a pest or pathogen is going to come through and just kind of wipe out indoor cultivation.
All the wedding cakes.
Yeah. And I think it takes that outdoor breeding to kind of keep that shit more stable and have a tougher genetic like you're talking about. So I agree 100% with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, man. I think that is really important. I think for everybody going forward, for home growers especially, and caregivers and people who need medicine too, is like, I was listening to your show when I was trying to get acquainted with your show. I was listening to the Mean Gene episode, and him talking about, people making selections kind of based on indoor, and like, hey, like I need something to yield this much. I need something to hit this number so that it makes sense. Like, and if it doesn't, to pay the bills, because electric bills are high, the cost of running indoors is pretty high. And if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of really great plants that could have been grown outside, for next to free under the sun, that were actually those special plants that, help somebody with cancer or with seizures or with, or with relaxing at the end of the day, more than, the one that, fills the canopy and makes sense, makes dollars and cents. And so for home growers to be able to kind of empower themselves to be able to like pick and choose and maybe figure out what works for them, like what they like as cannabis consumers, chances are they're not going to, go rush out and spend, a couple $1,000 setting up a fucking indoor grow to figure out what weed they like. But if they can throw a couple of plants out in their garden outside, they have a little garden space, and they can kind of experiment and see like what kinds of flavors do I like, what works for me. They're going to need to have seeds that can work in the outdoors, that are resilient for the outdoors and made for that, and that aren't just bred in an artificial environment. And it will make sense for them. It'll make perfect sense for them to grow that plant. It'll make more than enough medicine for them. So yeah, I hope people stay interested in diversity. I totally understand having to pay the bills. I totally get making dollars and cents, but there's also room for that special plant that doesn't make sense. and breeding for them too. Yeah.
Groski in chat. I love that when people phrase questions both in grateful form and polite. He says, "I would like to know a little bit more about his work with Jägermeister, Durban Poison, and Holy Big Sur, if possible. Please and thank you for your time tonight, guys."
Oh yeah. Oh, thanks for tuning in, man. Yeah, no, I'm not a ton of experience. Like I've seen the Durban a couple of times when I was out in California. Um, I forget what were those other strains, the Jaeger. Like I've never actually grown true Jaeger. I've seen the Oregon packs of Jaeger. I've smoked it. Yeah. Whatever. I can see what everybody's bitching about, but I also kind of don't mind it. But the crosses I've grown of it were really good. The crosses that I've grown of it here in Michigan worked really well for me. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the reason why Jaeger was so popular in Oregon was because it was such a mold resistant plant and put on some good weight. And so yeah, it's worked good for me up here, definitely as a hybrid.
Nice. Thank you for that answer, my friend.
Yeah.
So, as of the way things are changing, especially here in Michigan, they keep trying to push out us caregivers and home grows. Uh, where do you see yourself kind of fighting, going here in the future, as far as kind of keeping your dream alive? If it need be, will you pack up and chase the cannabis dream, or what is
Yeah,
the
man.
cannabis dream currently?
Yeah, that's a cool. That's an interesting question. It's a loaded question. Because I don't know the answer right now. There's a lot of we're yet to see. I think this is going to be a really big year for us here. Um, if things really go right this year, um, I don't know. Maybe we'll be here for the long haul, and we'll just be focused on finding our lane in any way that we can until the right opportunity comes along to become licensed. I don't know what that would even look like. I have no clue how to like kind of make that happen. Like I said, I work with a bunch of awesome, awesome cultivator friends who grow amazing herb. So it's like a dream for us to all be able to kind of showcase the terroir of the UP, and to like kind of showcase sun grown Upper Peninsula herb, because there is some really fucking killer herb growing up here. Um, and that would, look like probably having to own a processing facility, and each person having their own license so that we could do like solventless extracts and stuff like that. This is way down the road and maybe never happen, but there's that. And then the micro business, is a cool opportunity too. I really do like that. It's a little bit limited in what you can do, just as far as like really having to be in control of all your own distribution. I could see being really tough, like where we are, because we're in an isolated area with no money. There's not it's a there's not much money in the UP. There's not like, there's just not many people, period, either. There's just not and there's already, 6 dispensaries in the downtown Marquette near us. And and I never see cars in the parking lots. I'm sure they're doing business. I'm sure that I'm sure that a lot of people are going there and buying their herb there. But when there's already 6 dispensaries in a town of, I don't know their population, but it's not a huge city by any means. Um, it just makes it tough. There's a lot of growers up here. There's a lot of growers and not enough consumers probably to consume it all. And having a micro business, meaning that you have to retail directly to consumer, could be difficult. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. One lane I would really like to get into is just like, I don't know, we could do, if we can keep doing our 12 or 24 or whatever it is, if I can do my medical 12 and my rec 12, or if I saw that they were talking about doing like one patient per caregiver, which obviously I'm not with any of that. But what, if I could only do 24 plants, if I had to only do something like that, I could still grow 24 pretty badass plants outside and make some really killer hash out of it every year, and focus on making compost and then other products from the farm. Like I've always joked about, and I'm trying to get more serious about, but see how it goes about doing the juice farm. I'd love to just make all sorts of cool juices, veggies and fruits, and grow all sorts of different fruits and veggies and combine them and do juices at the farmer's market, or like freeze dried juices, for instance, and do like fresh juice powders that can be mixed with water for fresh juice whenever. That's $1 million idea. Somebody go ahead, run with it. But I think that compost is definitely one way I could see myself staying in the industry, because I know that as cultivation moves forward and people get smarter and more just, well, not as people get more educated and want to go down the sustainability and the living soil loop wormhole, and that they're going to need the materials to do that. Like, I don't know, from so far with my experience with taking the soil food web courses and learning how to use a microscope, I'm looking at a lot of these bagged composts that we're making our teas out of and stuff, and they're not loaded with beneficial biology. A lot of these composts are really not ideal, and so if you want to bet your farm on running compost teas, you better be sure that you've got compost with the right biology in it. So I could see myself like trying to kind of work that avenue a little bit, and just like really getting into compost and ensuring that we're making stuff with proper biology to grow cannabis to help those guys do their thing.
Kind of relating to the compost, you're not buying what you think you're buying. I've kind of noticed that's a big thing with earthworm castings. I've almost kind of come to the opinion that some of these producers are almost weighting down their product. So,
right.
Yeah, does that sound stupid or what? Because
No, I mean,
basically
no,
what I started
no,
doing like a slurry after talking to Coot a little bit as like a kind of a quick repair instead of just top dress, and kind of like watering it in. And what I found out was good castings, for the most part, kind of dissipated, when I mixed it up. But some of the cheaper
turn into
castings I
sludge.
bought, sand. Yeah, there's just all kinds of just shit in the bottom of there. So that's
Yeah.
what made me start wondering, because you're buying it by the weight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Oh
some of these
yeah.
larger companies purposely tried to, upscale their profits by feeding these
Well, I
worms
mean,
bullshit.
absolutely, absolutely they are. All compost is not created equal, for sure. And not all, like Elaine will tell you that not all compost should even be called compost at all. Like, rotten dead plant material that's, been putrefied and degraded is rotten dead organic matter. It's not compost full of beneficial organisms that should be inoculating your plant. But yeah, so I think that, for the most part, yeah, a lot of castings are probably just like newspaper, newspaper and cardboard and peat moss, like there's not a ton of like mineral diversity in there, and sure, the worms chewed it up and turned it into castings or whatever, but they're definitely not all created equally, I would say. So try and yeah, trying to find good compost has been like by in bulk has been difficult so far. It really made me realize you got to probably make your own, and that's not necessarily super easy either. It can, it can be as easy or complicated as you want to make it. But the best way to be sure that you're getting probably really diverse, good inputs is to do it yourself, or know the person who's doing it and be able to like know that they are using good stuff when you're just buying like the bag on the shelf. Yeah, like you said, it's just weight to them. It's just in dollars per pound. So whatever they can turn into castings and put in a bag is money in their pocket.
So referring back to, kind of bokashi a little bit, compost, all that good shit. Brandon Russ, same time. Smiley sent me the earth boxes. Brandon Ross sent me like a care package of bokashi and microbes and shit to kind of like key for success there. So I sprinkled some of this bokashi around the earth boxes and kind of followed the recipe I was given there. Uh, but I actually put some. I was running side by side there. I'm running a super chunky cocoa core that is
Mhm.
basically fucking mulch. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
they're marbles. And
yeah.
so I ended up throwing some of that bokashi in on top of that cocoa. And I'll be damned, what I would have gotten like 2, 3 runs easy out of that chunky cocoa. And I bought it and I loved it for that aeration. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
watering every day. It was really kind of pushing that plant a little bit. Man, they Bokashi broke that shit down into what I called unusable fucking cocoa, almost like fine silt dirt in one
Wow.
run. And I was
Wow.
like, that's what I said. Wow, that shit will
Wow.
break some shit down. Yeah, I was
Dude,
really
yeah.
impressed by that process.
No, that shit is wild, man. Yeah, once when Bokashi was definitely the turning point for me once we started realizing like once we watched it, yeah, dissolve that calcium layer of crust on top of our pots, kind of, or like definitely break it down. And yeah, that stuff is crazy, man. It really makes healthy plants. Love the Bokashi. Yeah, man. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I might get moving here, and I appreciate the time that we've been able to have here tonight, man. I don't know if you've got any other cool questions or anything from anybody, or if there's anything else that you wanted to dive into, or kind of wrap up questions that you got, man. But
Well, even if I do have some questions, I look much like I do the time checks throughout, man. I don't like to overstay the welcome because I like to try to get my guests back at some point. And if I fucking exhaust every question I have, that makes pretty for a pretty light interview the second round there.
for sure, for sure. No, man, we can save some
So
for later.
yeah, I
Yeah,
like to keep a little bit in the tank. But before you
sure.
go, I'd like to tell you how things work around here and go over a couple
Yeah,
things with you.
yeah,
Basically, that invitation that I sent you earlier this evening is good all the time. It is good for what I call the weed nerd world, which is kind of the panel show. If you look down the channel, there's a few things that go on here. There's the spotlight, me and you've done tonight. There's a weed nerd world, and that's open to all just past guests and all past guests. So there's a few nights a week where that's they can come hang out. Monday nights it's a little later night, and later, a little later at night, 2 a.m. It kicks off. Wednesdays, there's a West Coast takeover. It usually kicks off at 11:30 p.m. if you want to jump in with that. But we're always looking for new faces, other inputs, knowledge. It comes from everywhere, and so we'd like to keep the conversation fresh. So we'd love to
Hell yeah.
have you. It's a strictly want to come basis. I don't feel hopefully I have to feel like I have to invite you, say, hey guy, come on.
No, man.
No, if you happen to tune in and we're talking about something that you'd like to talk about or hang out, just smoke or whatever, come promote an event you're going to, any of the above, we'd love to have you come hang out for that. Another thing you'll find out on the channel is, of course, Smiley's Gardens, the organic takeover. He was at the Regen conference too. He may even want to reach out and talk to you and talk a little regen at one point, have you back just for that. A little more serious regen talk.
Man,
so that'd be cool as well. But I appreciate your time and would love to have you back for any of the above. The other thing I'd like to get from you before you go is a little silly thing I call the sound bite. At some point, it will be a commercial for your episode. Basically, what I'm looking for, my version is, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 608. You can put anything you want before or after that. I don't really care as long as that's got it in the body. I am ready for that. Right now,
wait,
friend.
So, wait, hold on. My bad, brother. You want me to give me a redo on it? You want me to say something? Right. This is Paisley Acres on talking shit with Eagle, and we're working with the forces of nature out here.
Perfect. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I greatly appreciate your time. Any shout outs, any thank yous, anybody they should check out, any places? Do you have a YouTube they can check you out on?
No, I don't have a YouTube. Instagram is the best place to really find me. I've got a bunch of great friends up here. I would love to shout out my buddy Swampy Acres, Swamp Hash, my buddy at Straight Up Solventless. Also, like I said, and Jim, of course, are all just great growers in my group who are really crushing it with seed selections and growing organically and spreading knowledge and doing a great job up here representing the UP. So much love to those boys. And yeah, man, thanks so much for having me on the show. And yeah, really appreciate your platform. Super cool.
I appreciate you coming. There's one other place you can find the weed nerd world is nightly. So basically, I told you in the beginning of this, the time slot is allowed is basically from 11:30 to 4:20. The other way the weed nerds worlds come into play is when we don't go the full time slot. Basically, after we're done, I'll stretch for a minute and then turn around and fire up the weed nerd world for anybody else that wants to help fill the time slot. So there's a spot, there's a chance nightly if you're up and can't sleep, and want to hang out. There's a good chance there's a weed nerd world on it. So if you want to come hang out. So
that's what's up, dude. Hell yeah, man. Appreciate your all the time you put into this platform. That's really awesome. I think it's great for people to be able to just talk freely like this and get to know each other a little bit better. Get to see the person behind the Instagram pages or whatever. Pretty cool.
So many great people, so many great stories. And now I've got to add you. I was blessed enough to put yours along the catalog, and I can't thank you enough for a great night. Time's the most valuable thing we have, and you gave me a nice chunk of yours, and I am very grateful for that. With that being
Cheers.
said, you have a great night. It has been a pleasure having you. And again, I hope to see you soon. For everybody else kind of watching, hopefully I will see you guys in the weed nerd world here in a few. If not, thank you guys for your time. Hopefully you guys remember the deal. Random acts of kindness do save lives. Don't be afraid to help somebody out. With that being said, we are out of here one last time. Paisley Acres, appreciate you,
Yeah.
brother.
See you,
Have a
man.
great day.